Yo, and welcome one and all to Timeless Gamer, where the games and gamers grow older, while the gaming experiences will forever remain timeless. Your gaming podcast show brought to you by the beautiful people of Pinoy Retro Gaming. And we are now live in Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. And for all of our archive videos of our previous episodes, you can still check them out by going to our YouTube channel, which is Timeless Gamer PRG, or just by going to our Facebook page, Pinoy Retro Gaming, PRG. Or if you don't want to watch us, that's fine. You can just listen to us talk. Go to Audible, Amazon Music, Spotify, iTunes, Google, Apple Podcast, Samsung Podcast, Podcast Index, Listen Notes, Pandora, TuneIn, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Deezer, by searching in Timeless Gamer. We got it all for you. All right. And previously in Timeless Gamer. So we were able to discuss everything that we know about this thing called the Transformers, and primarily about the G1 Transformers. Granted, more on the movie, the 1986 movie, the animated shows, the comic books, the toys that we have, some games that we played, and some of Michael Bay's table scraps. And so as for today's episode, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to talk about the Game Boy Advance games, and this particular episode has always been one of our topics that we always put on the back burner. But thankfully, we were able to come up with a solid program, or at least somebody who can talk a little bit more about the Game Boy Advance, about its lore and history, and its rich variants, releases of sorts. We welcome Serviraj. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you very much for having me. It's an honor to be here. So let's have some fun. Let's talk about this thing. Let's do this.
All right. And how about Sir Pao?
Hi, good evening to everyone from here in the Philippines and good day to the rest of the world. And once again, let's have some fun. Let's talk about what we need to talk about here. Everything that you need to know and more.
All right. Thank you for that, Sir Pao. How about Enslin Porter?
Hi everyone, welcome to the stream and the podcast. We are going to talk about the Game Boy Advance. Welcome everybody.
And how about Honoka 99 over there?
Hey guys, what's up? I hope everyone is going to be enjoying this wonderful stream about Game Boy Advance games. I hope you guys enjoy the show.
All righty. How about Sir JD Aram?
Yes, 1, 2, 3, go. One Demarcus from Cebu City, the Pinoy Otacon. And I hope you enjoy this episode, guys.
All right. Thank you for that, Sir JDM. And of course, the one leading the charge for this episode, our handheld meister, the one who likes holding something in his hands. Sir Joe.
All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Timeless Gamer podcast. Coming at you straight from New Jersey, the guy who absolutely loves holding stuff in his hands. That's me, the Manyang native, Joel Baklit. And like Joe says, you can watch us live here on Facebook, on Twitch, and on YouTube. And you can download our podcast and all the different platforms. You have no excuse to have your retro on the go. So back to you, Joe.
All right, thank you for that. Every single one of our panel for tonight, and of course, we cannot even forget the backbone of the show, the chat. How are you all doing down there, Miss Honoka? Could you please enumerate the members down there at the chat?
Mm-hmm.
Well, we have here Tres Natad saying, "Hey, good
Woo.
evening, Kuya Tres from 3K." We have here Tito Jano, Ian Santos saying, "Sup, good evening, everyone." We have Dan Dice Gaming here saying, one of the best Game Boy devices of all Game Boy Advance."
Completely agreed, Dan.
All right, who else down there, Miss Enslin Porter?
Then we have Tito Popoy, Jep Sardalia, Jerkus Zajeban, Vernice Co,
All right.
and Romel Vencilio, Core Gundam Plays of PRG.
Oh,
All right, all
I'd like
right.
to highlight the comment here by Jarkus Zajaban, who says 3x3 looks a bit like the Brady Bunch intro. Yes, there you
Damn,
go. For
damn.
those of you who are not familiar, Brady Bunch was a sitcom series, if I remember correctly,
Mm,
from back in the 80s, or was it the late 70s, if I remember correctly?
I think it was the
Uh,
70s.
the 70s,
There
yes,
was this
and
Yeah.
lady who
yes,
met
the
man
Brady
named
Bunch.
Brady.
And I could be wrong, but they also had a movie most recently, a revival movie with different actors. But we're not gonna touch on that. We'll touch on we'll touch on all the different sitcoms from back in the 70s and 80s in a future episode if you guys ask for it. So. Ladies and gentlemen, in the chats, make sure that you guys let your opinions known. We will do our very best to reach out to you and find out what you guys have to say because that's what Timeless Gamer is all about. It's not just about us here in the panel, it's about you in the audience as well.
All right, thank you for that,
Yeah.
everyone. And um, a little bit of an anecdote in regarding with the GBA. When the
Mm.
Game Boy Advance came out, it was what 2000, 2001.
Yes.
In the
2001.
Yes.
Philippines, the PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2 reigned supreme during this
Oh,
era.
yeah. Mm.
To be honest, I didn't even realize there was a Game Boy Advance that
Mm.
came out. All I know it was still the Game Boy and the Game Boy Color.
Mm.
So all of the library for the Game Boy Advance, nothing. And then when I saw the gaming magazines, there's a Game Boy Advance. I didn't know that, and it only came out right around college when emulation was a little bit during its prototype years. I was able to dwell on it for a while, and when I was able to afford to buy a few, then I realized, oh my god, the Game Boy Advance games are so goddamn expensive to collect.
That's what happens when you
Even
come in on
now,
the tail end.
even now, even Sir
Mm.
Viraj is laughing because it's true, guys. It's true.
It's
It's
true. It's
true.
true.
So I
Um,
will give it now to Sir
Mm.
Joel
Mm.
to lead us for this evening. But before that, gaming news. Sir Joel.
Gaming news. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, we'll start off this episode by touching on the gaming news that has been happening for the past week and what's been happening in the gaming world today because it's not just about retro, it's about what's happening right now as well. So, most recently, we had a very quick stream on my kick.com channel about the Sony PlayStation Showcase. I was lucky enough to have Joe, Wanda Marcos, and Ranji Patag as special guests for that particular stream. It was a well, let's just say it was a very, very exciting stream for a lot of people, particularly my good friend over there, Juan de Marcos of 123 Go Retro. He one special feature of the Sony PlayStation showcase was JDM. Mention it.
Yes, there was a like a teaser for the remake of Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake,
Mhm.
but it's called Metal Gear Delta, right? Metal Gear Solid Delta
It
Snake
looks
Eater.
yes, it looks like Metal Gear Solid Delta from the way that it is being talked about, and I the excitement in Juan DeMarcos's voice was palpable when it popped up. Really, you could hear the tingles going up and down his spine when it happened.
And when it showed up, I thought it was a different game. I thought it was Far Cry or a
Mm,
new hunting game. Then Snake just popped out, and the rest
yeah,
was history.
yeah. Juan DeMarcos squealed like a little girl then. So.
Don't watch the replay.
Well, yeah, Juan DeMarcos is not advocating a rewatch of
I
the
want to see
watch
that
of the
again.
replay. Yes, but the thing is, lots of games got featured there, like Ghost Runner 2, Immortals of Avenium, if I remember correctly. I could be wrong on that one. A lot of new properties are being talked about in the Sony PlayStation Showcase in 2023, and it prompted people like me who were not initially interested in getting a PlayStation 5 to kind of consider it for the future once all these games start coming out. Romel Bencilia on the chat says, "I love to see Sergio San and Sir Joel San's GBA collection." I guess I that was a little Holy Grails. There you go. And uh, that was the Sony PlayStation Showcase 2023. Oh, the Talos Principle. I completely forgot to mention that as well. I still have to play that for the first one though. And going on with a little bit more of the gaming news, I'll pass it off to Sir Pao because he's got a little something to talk about a particular fighting game called Mortal Kombat. Never heard of it. Sir Pao, tell me all about it.
Ooh, I first of all, I wonder how young are you not to be familiar with Mortal Kombat.
Mortal Kombat. They even spelled it wrong with a
Ah.
K. Anyway, continue.
All this time they spelled the combat wrong. But
I
then
know the
about the
copywriters
trailer
must.
that was just released like 2 weeks ago or last week, can't exactly remember. For some for someone like me, I am really not expecting a new Mortal Kombat game since when I was able to play the Mortal Kombat 11 Ultimate, it seems that the story has already ended because everything in the timeline has
got
came back to the beginning.
got wrapped up. Okay.
Yeah, it all got wrapped up and it all starts over. Only this time with Liu Kang instead of Raiden being the god in the story.
Hmm.
And then
Spoilers.
all of a
Okay, for those of
sudden,
you who haven't played it yet, there you go.
Oh,
Anyway, continue, Sir Pao.
the
Sorry about that.
spoilers
yeah,
alert.
Hmm.
and then all of a sudden we get to see this trailer, and now here we are. We're go
We're
every
done.
part of the story will be repeated from the beginning. Only difference is that it may turn different now that it could be now that the flow could be different, knowing again that Liu Kang is now the god in here instead of Raiden. So far,
Okay.
that's the only thing we know as the trailer shows. Yet we can see here right now that Shang Tsung will be once again the main antagonist, and the more we look at this trailer, it's gonna be gorier, it's gonna be bloodier than ever.
Even than before?
Like
Really?
that.
Yeah. The thing
Is
with
it?
Mortal Kombat, how long must they keep doing fatalities with each other and then we expect them to be
So
back
it's like
on
the
the
opposite.
next game,
Th-
right?
yeah, that's one thing I wonder as well. How come they get to create more unique fatalities over and over uh, every time a new game gets released?
Well, my question regarding the new Mortal Kombat: will they still have Kerry Hiroyuki Tagawa as voicing Shang Tsung?
the
Yes, I would love him to.
Nice. Then
well,
Yeah.
I'm all
The
well,
in.
answer is
maybe for
yes.
some.
I'm all in then.
Yeah.
The
Well,
only thing the only
It's
thing that
mine.
I might be missing would probably be what's his name? The guy who played Highlander, the guy who played Connor McLeod.
oh yeah, that one.
Uh
Christopher Lambert.
Christopher
Christopher
Lambert.
Sure.
Lambert.
Christopher
Or
Lambert
Lambert.
Yeah.
playing Raiden, but it's it's a part.
Not James Rebar.
Although
Christopher Lambert playing Raiden. That would be a dream combo for me because for those of you who are fans of the 1995 Mortal Kombat movie, he was Raiden in that movie. Anyway,
yeah,
all right, excellent. Thank you very much, Sir Pao. That
yeah.
does it for the gaming news of the week. I'm absolutely sure there's a lot more that we can talk about in terms of gaming news. For those of you who are in the chats who want to talk about gaming news, please type it into the chats because we are looking forward to what your opinions are on what's been happening in the gaming industry most recently. And as something interesting pops up in the chats, we will mention them as well. And Jarkus Zajaban says there can be only one. Yes, of course. You have to mention the signature line of Highlander. Of course, of course. Some guy named Juan Gerardo de Marca says, "Isn't this a famous line from Metal Gear Solid as well?" All right, excellent. Oh, so now we get into the meat and potatoes of the episode, the Game Boy Advance, and for that one, we are going to um, bring in our the newbie of the show, Mr. Viraj Katwadia. Tell us what the Game Boy Advance is all about. Viraj, take it away.
Well, thank you. The Game Boy Advance was Nintendo's foray into the 21st century by making handheld games probably look a lot more attractive to the 8-bit outings of the original Game Boy and the Game Boy Color. I mean, this is what we had. and this is what they've evolved to, because that was like a monochrome black and white system.
Mhm.
They gave it some color with this thing, and there were different variants with it. There's add-ons and all sorts of stuff that they made for it. But
For those of you in
you know,
the audio portion of the podcast, let's remember, Viraj, that we have people listening in. Viraj is holding up originally. First, he held up the original Game Boy DMG, the white and
DMG.
red, the gray and red one, which has the green LCD screen. A lot of kids lost lots of hours playing Tetris on that little thing.
Yeah.
And then it got and adults too
Yeah.
as well. And to continue, he held up a monstrosity of a Game Boy Color
Well,
with
let me pull this
attachments
out
to it.
because this is silly. We don't need that. That's what we had. Yeah.
Mhm.
All right. So that's it. And you know the cartridges were. Let's have a look at the cartridges very quickly. That's how big they were. This is Metroid 2.
Yes.
So you know, that's what we had, and there were 8-bit, and yes, they did fight off the competition, which was the Atari Lynx and the Sega Game Gear. It did outsell because the games designed for these consoles were appropriate for the handheld market. But then, you know, Nintendo were up for its threats, such as the Neo Geo Pocket and Pocket Color, and this is 16-bit, you know, on the go. And in the end, Nintendo made this thing here. This is the first Game Boy Advance. Let's have a look at it. Let's put it out. So that's 32-bit. That's what they advertised it at. But the way the games ran, it's 16-bit part 2. That's why I look at it, and
I call that the sideways GBA. I know it's the
original.
original. I know it's the original, but I always call it the sideways GBA.
Yeah, so you had the rubber grip there. It's actually probably the most comfortable to play. Actually, it's actually the most comfortable to play because you know you've got your hands are in the right position. You're comfortable. You're not cramping when playing this. So I've got the Game Boy Advance MP3 player in here, so you can actually just on the go. They created accessories and all sorts of things for it. But you know, this is where it was. It still took 2 AA batteries like the Game Boy Color before it did. But you know, its biggest failing, in my opinion, was the lack of no backlight. Like, why am I still straining my eyes trying to play a video game? And you know, going forward, 2 years later, after 2001, Nintendo went and made a revision, and they created the Game Boy Advance SP, which is this lovely device here.
The clamshell design.
The clamshell design protects the screen. You know, that's really good.
Whoa.
You got the 2 buttons. You got an option to turn the backlight on and off. So let's turn it on. Let's see if I've got some. There we go.
Yes,
there we go. So you have the option. I know you can't really see on the computer, but you can turn it on and off the
Oh,
screen.
it's beautiful.
Yeah,
You can. It does show actually.
It shows. Okay, so there you go. So it makes such a difference in playing games, not straining your eyes. Okay, so you have that. And this is another big deal. It had a rechargeable battery built in. None of them before it had it, and this is a rechargeable battery. You didn't have to nag your parents to say, "Can I have new batteries for this device?" You just charge it. You're done. You know,
didn't have to steal your your television remote control.
You don't have to
whenever
steal
it
the
broke
remote
down.
controls batteries. You don't have to steal your mother's batteries.
Well, wait. Why would you? Well, okay,
Yeah.
we're not going to delve into that question. We're not going to delve into that question.
Your
Okay.
mother's remote.
Well, okay, so you have this. Then you got the golden edition. This is a very European variant. They have different colors, different variants. This is a Triforce edition. It's only released in Europe. The Americans didn't even get this. So again, this came with the Minish Cap in the box. So a very, very popular game as well. 2004 release when the Nintendo DS came out. So they kept it relevant even though the newer console was coming out. So you had that, and then eventually we move on to the next phase, which is obviously the Nintendo DS has been out for a while. So they then create this
Raymond
thing.
says, Sir Biraj, I'll private message
Right.
you my address for you to send it to Sir Ray.
All right, so I am looking to sell these things, but you got to like really get some money because these are expensive to collect. This again is a European. So this green color never came out in America, from my understanding. So even the micros. This is a Game Boy Advance Micro, 2006 release. This one they actually rectified an error which the Game Boy Advance SP has. It has the headphone jack back in, which is really good. It has a whopping 8-hour battery life, which is amazing. Okay. And the screen's brightness on these things is just outstanding because the screens on the Advance was a bit dull, but you can actually increase the 3 levels of the screen's brightness on this thing, which is good. The only downside is it has no Z80 chip processor in there, which means it's not backwards compatible with the Game Boy and Game Boy Color games. It's only purely designed to play Game Boy Advance. But in 2006, you had more than enough titles to play on this device, which is really good. So you have that.
Sir Viraj, I think there's a question here from Jarkus. Sir JDM, could you please read the question?
Right, that's a good question, Jarkus. Does the original Game Boy Advance come within the DC in power? So I guess it means, does it come with an adapter to play with? No, it does not. That's a good question. This is the only one out of the whole Game Boy line which doesn't have a feed where you can just power it into a wall plug. So that was actually something that was a bit disappointing. It does have the headphone jack, but you can get a rechargeable battery kit, which I own, that you can charge batteries and put it in there. But that's really all you have. You don't have a charger. We can put it just direct for the main. So an oversight on Nintendo's part on that one.
A
Another
little
follow-up
bit.
question.
Oh, follow-up question. JDM, could you read
Competition.
could you read the question for us, please?
Yeah. Sir.
Xeon.
Sir Mirage, do you
Xeon.
have the Xeon GBA SP?
Mhm.
I don't even know what that is. I guess these are the variants that I have. I have this one. I have this one.
Mm.
I have the green one, which I showed you.
Yeah.
He's flexing everything.
Yeah.
I got these two. But going forward, the only thing I have in terms of Game Boy Advance stuff, and I just wanted to finish this very, very, very quickly. They continued, like, Nintendo loved the Game Boy Advance so much, it was so popular, the Nintendo DS actually was backwards compatible with Game Boy Advance. It's a Game Boy Advance as well. Same with the DS Lite before they went DSi. We have, a cartridge slot here. We open it and we put the games in there. You can play games that way on the DS Lite. So that's the last console they made which played the Game Boy Advance. I mean, the games do stick out a bit, and this is the cartridge for the Game Boy Advance. I haven't even gone there yet. This is Mario & Luigi Superstar Saga, very popular game. You put the cartridge in there. Okay, it is backwards compatible, but it sticks out, which is a bit weird. But you can still play the games on the.
Nah,
on the
you
DS
can
Lite.
still definitely play the game. A lot of people have actually been buying up broken original DS and DS Lites to try to salvage them, take out the top portion of the DS and the DS Lites, and then make them into what they call as GBA macros. And those go for a pretty penny on places like Etsy and eBay. A lot of people pay top dollar for modified DS Lites and original DSs that have been made into GBA macros, particularly the ones that have been turned in with metal shells on them already. Those go for upwards of $300, if I remember correctly.
I mean, in all fairness, playing your Game Boy Advance games on the DS is a good thing because the screen is brighter on the DS. Remember, as time went on, they made the screens look a lot brighter than the original GBA SP. And what I loved about I played a lot of Game Boy Advance games on the DS because I got my premium DS game on the front. And if I get bored playing that, I'll play like something simple, like an arcade game on the Game Boy Advance. So you have two consoles in one. It was amazing. You got 16-bit games, you got a 3D game on. So you have the best of both worlds. So it was actually a really wonderful thing that Nintendo did by launching this handheld console, which was basically a SNES, a Super Nintendo, and a Sega Mega Drive in your hands.
Pretty much, yes.
That's pretty much it, and it did a bit more. But then going forward, they still supported this with the Nintendo DS.
We have one moment, Viraj. We suddenly have somebody popping up here. Somebody named Raymond Lorenz of Retro Freak Gaming, who is, of course, an essential part of Timeless Gamer, and he got so entranced by your showcase that he is now holding out his hands, saying,
Viraj, I'm one of the seniors of PRG. So it's it's a thing that from the it's a welcoming committee that you should give me one of your tensions.
Oh, actually, yes. Raymond is correct on that one, Viraj, because it's an Asian thing.
You never visit somebody else's house without a gift.
Exactly.
I'll see.
I'm all good with the Game Boy SP NES edition. Okay.
Oh, this one. Okay.
Just kidding. I know, Viraj. It's an Asian thing where if you visit somebody else, you have to bring a gift.
Hey, listen, I'm Asian too, man. I'm just South Asian.
You would know.
The same culture. It's
Exactly.
the same.
You would know because you're Asian too.
I just want to, Viraj, I just want to welcome you to the PRG
Thank you.
Timeless.
Yeah.
That's very
I'm
kind
just
of you.
going
Thank
down
you.
lang.
And I'm an admirer of your
Thank
shows.
you so
I see you. I watched you as well.
I'll just PM you my address in the so that we can.
All right.
Well,
Thank
that's the
you so
thing.
much, Viraj. I love you.
That's the thing. All right, continue, Viraj. You were about to say.
So, what was I? So, yes, the Nintendo DS continued that legacy of the Game Boy Advance for a while longer. It lasted 3 more years because of the DS, and it was actually really cool because the DS was like their premium handheld solution at the time, and it's actually the most popular selling handheld they had. Eventually, it went on to be very popular. But those people who couldn't afford a DS, this thing was quite cheap. It was only $69.99 on release, and they went down to clearance, and it was an affordable option for people to get to. And when I worked for the electronics company, I saw Nintendo come, and this was actually marketed to women, believe it or not. So they put it in the handbags. It's actually for women and small children, and it's actually quite small. It's a good game. I wouldn't recommend playing RPGs on it because the screen is quite small. You can't read the text.
The thing about the thing about the micro, you can actually see a little bit of a lanyard hole on the corner there as well, right, Viraj? That is something that you can put a lanyard. What is the right word? A lanyard, a little bit keychain thing. A lanyard keychain.
A keychain?
Yes, exactly.
Like a keychain?
Chain. Well, what
a wrist
chain or something.
To be honest, I always had it in a case because I didn't want to get it scratched up.
Same.
You know? So this is it. So these are really really delicate, and I love them. And they're quite well built. They're metal bodies. You know, they're actually quite well made. And I love these systems. The battery life. I took this to India on a trip for 2 weeks because I got bored with it, seeing my family. I never had to charge it once because the battery life was. I think it went up to 12 hours because I lowered the brightness on the screen and lowered the sound, but I didn't have to charge it once, and I played Castlevania and I beat it. So you know, it's all good stuff. So yeah, these are really good machines. And Advance is again. Let's talk about the library now because I mean we've seen the systems, we've done the show and tell. Let's have a look at what games it had because this is what it was all about. And for me, you've seen me on these podcasts before. I think we did a Master System episode. We saw my love for retro gaming.
Yeah.
And again, like I say, it's 16-bit part 2. It's the Mega Drive and Super Nintendo in the power in your hands. That's what it is. It's literally that. And there were so many games for the Game Boy Advance. It had no competition. Sony hadn't developed their PSP yet. The Neo Geo Pocket Color wasn't a threat, and neither was the Bandai Wonder Swan. This was its own thing, and it was a thing that developers could easily develop for.
But before we get into that, Viraj, let me just one of the important things what we do here in Timeless Gamer is that we don't just strive to entertain our audience. We also strive to educate them as well, because you know those who it's an old saying in the Philippines: those who do not know their history those who don't know how to look back to where they come from will never get to where they're going. It's kind of like an old saying, like those who don't know their history are doomed to repeat it. So in this case, Viraj showed that there's the Game Boy Original, there's the Game Boy SP, and the GBA Micro. So the Game Boy Original came out in 2001, if I remember correctly.
That's correct.
Viraj. We might as well ask Miss Charlene or Miss Porter if they recall what years. This is a pop quiz, okay? Miss Charlene and Miss Porter. Points for those who answer correctly. GBSP, when did it come out? What year did it come out? No Googling.
do I get to
about this?
No, Viraj, you're exempt for this one because you just did your showcase.
Okay, I'll stay quiet.
All right,
I
let's see.
actually do not
Miss
know.
Charlene,
When did the Game Boy SP? Game Boy
when
SP
did the Game
or
Boy
Game Boy
SP come
Advance?
out? The Game Boy SP. When the Game Boy Original came out in 2001.
September.
Pop quiz.
September.
Oh, Miss Charlene, I think you hung for a
believe
moment
it's
there.
around September 2005.
Incorrect. Oh,
Hello.
sorry. Minus points.
Anthony,
No.
Phil. Anthony,
No.
Phil.
No.
There's no
go ahead.
Googling, so I have no answer to
No.
The lead,
am left
people in the
behind,
chats
you
might
know.
be able to help you.
So
Actually,
Banana
Alright,
Rika said 2001.
2001 was the original.
that's
we'll
when
give.
this came out.
There
2
you
years
go, that was
later.
Mhm.
2 years
2 years
later.
later.
I know the exact date because I bought my Game Boy Advance SP on release. Okay, my silver
Really?
one.
Oh.
Yeah,
Well,
I bought it. In the UK, the release date was March
Ooh.
11th, 2003. And
2003.
2003,
There you go.
March 11th is when I bought mine.
There
And
you go.
I fell in love because the SP was my favorite handheld, to be honest. I fell in love with it the moment I got it. I could play games on the go. I had the backlight. I got the adapter for the headphones because you needed an adapter. I had no thing, but the sound was crystal clear. It was wonderful, and I love that machine. That's the
Actually,
truth.
that's the thing though. The SP did not have the 3.5 adapter, did it?
No, it
Raj?
didn't. No, but what you could do is I've actually sold my adapter because I'm selling my stuff now. But there's a little dongle that will go into the back where the power socket goes, and it'll come out. And there's a little cable. You get it for about £3 on eBay if you look, and it will actually transfer that into a 3.5mm jack. And that 3.5mm jack will go there, and you'll be able to listen to your sound in amazing stereo. And it was crystal clear when I heard it, and it was like surprised at how clear it was. So, definitely something worth investing in for those of you who have a Game Boy Advance SP to get that stereo sound. Because remember, it only has one mono speaker on the front. Even though it's a good speaker, you want to have that stereo sound. It makes when you play Metroid Fusion and you want that atmosphere, that stereo sound makes a difference, guys.
All right. General survey for the panelists on the podcast. Raise your hand if you actually have at least one Game Boy Advance. Raise your hand. There you go.
Like
Okay, let's.
you have your own.
If you have your own Game Boy Advance, all right. How many do we have? One, two, three. One,
All
two,
right.
three,
One,
four.
but that's a long time ago.
Okay, there you go. We've got four panelists right now who actually have Game Boy
No,
Advances. Don't worry, for those of you, for the other panelists who don't have their Game Boy Advances, those of us who do will be able to show you guys. Will be able to carry the weight for you guys, and we'll all share. Okay, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've got more than enough weight for all of you.
There you go.
I wish I
I have
had
one
one.
Viraj is
yeah.
volunteering his collection already. So those are the years: 2001 for the original Game Boy, the sideways Game Boy, as I like to call it, the Game Boy Advance SP 2003, and the Game Boy Micro came out in 2005. So those were the years. Yes, Viraj, go ahead.
I was going to say 2005.
2005,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
Have to admit, those were excellent years. And as Viraj has kind of touched
Oh.
on it, the software library is stupendous for the
Oh.
Game Boy Advance. How many? Okay, another. Let's have. Let's
Sorry
have
to
the
interject
other.
her, Joel. I'm just
Mm.
giving a quick shout out
Go
to
ahead, go ahead.
Sir Derek of Retro Gaming Times. Thank you for the raid.
We're being raided.
Welcome, Raiders.
There you go. A raid from Retro Gaming Times. Derek Ponay, one of our most active, one of
Whoa.
our most
Welcome, Raiders.
amazing
Welcome,
Pinoy Retro Gaming members. We've also got Christ John Esagunde, hashtag RGT Raid, very good. And I also neglected to mention a little bit earlier, there was Vernice Cole, who also said hi to the Timeless Gamer podcast. Very
And
good.
guess what, Tito Joel? Derek
Yes.
was playing a game from the Game Boy Advance during
Oh.
his stream before he raided us.
Oh my gosh, what
Ah.
game was that, Sir Pao?
It's Pokemon Emerald.
Pokemon
That's
Emerald,
a
which is
good
the
question.
perfect
Yes,
segue. Yes, Miss Charlene, go ahead.
Ooh. Yeah. Oh my god, that was actually part of my backlog. Actually, that was actually supposed to be part of my backlogs. The Emerald.
Pokemon Emerald. There you go. Actually, let's also ask Miss Charlene. Miss Charlene, have you what? This is a very random question, Miss Charlene. What is your? Have you ever handled a Game Boy Advance, and which one was it? Sorry, I'm sorry, Miss Enslin Porter. Miss Enslin Porter. Sorry about
Oh,
that.
me. Well,
The Joel is
Oh, Miss Hanukkah is hanging right now. Let's hear Miss Porter's opinion first.
and so the only Game Boy console I have held,
Okay.
Game Boy Advance, I mean, is the GBA. So this one, if anybody remembers, I just bought this last year on the RGCP event last August. So I am really way behind on
Mm.
actual consoles, but I have played Game Boy Advance games on emulators. And again, we do not promote piracy here. So if you can buy the original stuff, buy the original stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well. Oh,
Very true, very
Um,
true. We
yeah.
do not endorse unoriginal gaming, but we recognize the reality of it. So
Yes, unfortunately.
that's perfectly fine. Gaming is gaming, and in my case, I don't discriminate. If you're heck, if I got the chance, I would game on a calculator. I would game on a
Um,
calculator. I don't care as long as it's gaming. But Miss
I-
Porter has been very
Right.
has mentioned that she is now getting into Game Boy Advance, and this is actually the perfect way of
Very nice.
introducing Miss
Very good.
Porter into the various games that are available here in the Game Boy Advance. Mr. Viraj Katwadia, let's talk about popular games and franchises for the Game Boy Advance.
Alright, so we touched on Mortal Kombat earlier with the gaming news, right?
Mm.
But and there were 3 Mortal Kombat games, and I don't own any of them because they all suck. but they're there on the system. So you got Mortal Kombat Advance, Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance, and Mortal Kombat Tournament Edition. They're not my type of tea, to be honest. But it's interesting because you got Mortal Kombat game that looks more like the 16-bit port of the originals that on the SNES and Mega Drive era, and then you have like Deadly Alliance, which is like they tried to do some 3D graphics with it. They look really pixelated, and the same with Tournament Edition. I understand why they were going with it. But the fighting games I own, let's talk about the fighting games. I have 3, and these are better looking ones. There were SNK, and there were so many others, but you can't beat a classic. You can't beat Street Fighter 2 Revival, Turbo Revival, and that's a really good fighting game. And if that's not enough for you, and you want a bit more character selection, you have Street Fighter Alpha 3. And this is a good one as well for the system. And as you can see, this is the PAL edition because this doesn't have the you can see that I've got the NTSC edition here because it's got that ERSB logo there rated. So I have a mixture of regions, but it doesn't matter. It's not region locked. You can play any region on any Game Boy Advance. That's one of the reasons I love it. Going forward, I went for this one as well. This came out in 2004. It's called Sonic Battle. Again, that's like Smash Bros. But for the Sonic universe. It's a very obscure title. It's one I'd recommend you play. It's a very, very good game. All right. Okay, so that's my fighting games there. So let's have a talk about other genres like niche stuff that I was into. So
oh my god,
we've got Miss Anuku like do you like Pokemon? I've got Pokemon Pinball here, Ruby and Sapphire. So it's actually a very good pinball game. A lot of fun. And
I
Sonic
love
fans
pinball
out there.
games.
You got Sonic Pinball Party. So again, there's some really good pinball games on there. This is like just to be scraping the tip of the iceberg on good quality. There were some interesting genres here that were developed throughout this era. So the strategy games were sort of enhanced, and you have Advance Wars and Advance Wars 2. We're having some ports on the
Nintendo Switch. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, for those of you who did not get the chance to experience the amazing Advance Wars games on the Game Boy Advance, you will now be able to experience them on the Nintendo Switch. Please continue, Viraj.
Yeah, so, and speaking of Nintendo Switch, the Nintendo Switch Online service has Game Boy Advance as well, so you can actually experience them through that service. So it's not a dead format. Nintendo are still supporting them by releasing it if you subscribe to their premium package on Nintendo Switch Online. I just want to make that point.
That actually kind of, if I can interrupt you for a moment, Viraj, I would like Miss Charlene to discuss a little bit of the gaming news that came out most recently. I think that I'm not quite sure if it came out this week or the weeks past. Miss Charlene, could you discuss a little bit about the Game Boy Advance games that have come out on the Nintendo Switch?
Well, we have here the release on Game Boy Advance games is that we have here is the Super Mario Advance 1, 2, and 3. We also have here is Metroid Fusion, Legend of Zelda: The Minish Cap, and the Kururin, and Super Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga. If you guys are actually familiar with this game, Mario Kart Circuit, and
of course,
what we have
Viraj has it.
here last is WarioWare Incorporated, which you can only use the Rumble version. There you go. That's right.
Well, there's two actually. There's the Twisted one that came out afterwards, and WarioWare. This was a very, very popular game. I didn't know about it. My friend...
All in mint condition. What the hell?
In mid condition, like comic book life from The Simpsons. But
all enough to bring.
This is an interesting story. This one has a very interesting cartridge design. There we go. As a rumble, and this is interesting.
The gyroscope, I think.
Here. That's right. This is when Nintendo bought a gyroscope.
There you go.
And
the gyroscope version.
We never got it in Europe because it has mercury in the cartridge, and the EU banned this from being sold. So I had to import this. So it's actually got a lot of value for us here in Europe. But this is in my opinion. I know we're going to talk about it later. This is my favorite game on the system, and it's so addictive. I love it. It's such a good game. So you have those two WarioWare games, and obviously the series has expanded into something so much bigger. But both of those Game Boy Advance WarioWare games are gold. No pun intended, because there's a game called WarioWare Gold on the 3DS, but these two are gold.
Viraj kind of touched on this. Oh, sorry, Joe, go ahead.
Now I understand why they placed a warning behind the Switch cartridge. Do not lick the cartridge because of that.
Don't lick the batteries.
Yeah.
Well, Viraj kind of touched on this. we are going to be imposing we are going to be imposing a limit on every panelist here on the Timeless Gamer podcast. This particular podcast, we're only going to be discussing two of our most
Yeah.
favorite GBA games, because in the interest of in the interest of focusing on the very best games that, in our opinion, and for brevity's sake. But I mentioned that because of the fact that Marlon Hurtado Eliscupides in the chats actually pointed it out. Very pertinent. The number of games on this list is 1,538, organized alphabetically by the game's localized English titles, or when Japan exclusive, the Romaji transliterations. It's
And out of all the 1,500 games that Sir Viraj has, he
yeah.
is only allowed to talk two.
Two. Yeah, you go.
Okay, so I'll
We
be
will
very
be
quick.
talking about Viraj's
We're
favorites.
just doing a quick fire in regards to the collection I have. And we'll
All
go
right,
quickly,
all right.
yeah.
Go
So,
ahead.
this was a big release in 2003. This is the first game I ever bought in 2003 for my SP.
Four Swords.
It's Four Swords Adventures, but it's Legends of Zelda: Link to the Past. A very good very good Super Nintendo port. And one thing they did with the Advance, as was mentioned earlier with the Super Advanced games, they ported a lot of NES and Nintendo and Super Nintendo games on this format. This was a very good port, so that's very good. There's also the Minish Cap, which I actually have I don't have a box box. It came in a special box with my golden Game Boy Advance. That's another good game.
Okay.
But these are notable ones. I don't know if you know about these.
Boktai, nice
Boktai.
ones. Joe,
Right.
okay,
so
you should be playing
I'm
these
familiar
ones.
with Boktai.
Now we talked about emulation earlier, didn't we? You can
yes.
emulate these, but you have to
yeah.
put a patch on, but you're not really playing the game as intended. Now let me show you the cartridge with this. This
Sunlight.
thing, right? You see it? So can you see you can't see it, but there's a solar sensor there. It's
Yes.
that little black bit. So the idea is encourage kids to go outside, and it's a game where you have to go after vampires, and you have to charge your solar gun, but you have to be outside and get actual sunlight onto your game into the cartridge to play the game. It was made by Hideo Kojima, who did Metal Gear Solid. So
Hideo
a lot of people can
Kojima,
play
yes.
it.
JDM.
Think of Boktai, guys, as a like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, but instead of using sticks, he's using his own solar gun.
Yes.
And if you're outside, the more sunlight you're getting,
Yes.
the stronger his weapon gets.
Very true. Very true.
Very interactive.
And what is the subtitle to Boktai, Viraj? Which would be very relevant.
The sun is in your hand.
There you
The
go.
sun
That's
is
it.
in your hand.
Boktai, the sun is in your hands.
And
If you're in the
It's-
Philippines, it's always in your hands.
Actually, no. In the Philippines, it's always in your face.
the hands of Philippine
I mean,
community.
I tell you, it's so cloudy in London. The only time I could play this game is when I went to India because of the sunlight. I couldn't even play this game. It's silly, you know.
Yeah, I'd heard very infamous stories about how London is nothing but fog and
It's
clouds
a
all
lovely game
the
to play,
time.
but yeah.
Like you don't need Game Genie code, you don't need Code Breaker, you don't need Game Shark. I mean, it's always 999 attack. If you're in India or in the Philippines.
So going forward with when I mentioned earlier with ports, so Nintendo thought there were games that people missed out on, games that people want to play in their hands. You had the NES Classics Edition, and they were launched simultaneously with the NES Classic Game Boy Advance SP that I have. So you had Castlevania, and these were sold at like a budget of 2/3 of a normal game price because they are 8-bit games. But you have this one goes for a lot actually. Zelda and Mario Brothers. So yeah, they did that. So again, they did ports on it, which some people might think is a bit lazy, but it's actually quite clever in the way that.
No, it's a good marketing tactic. It's a very good marketing tactic.
Yeah. So again, this is another remake. So this is another port, but it's a remake completely of the original Metroid game called Metroid Zero Mission. A great game. So this came out after Metroid Fusion, which I've actually sold 2 weeks ago. So it was an offer I couldn't refuse. But Fusion was a very good game. This is also a much more challenging game, and this is where you see Samus in a Zero suit for the first time. You see her in this game debuted in it. So it's a very, very good game, a much bigger game than the original. And if you're going to play the original Metroid, this is the one you want to play. If it's available on Switch Online, I recommend you play this game. Very good game.
From the chats, Viraj, Raymond Orendes says, Viraj, you're my favorite panelist now. Okay, you're the favorite panelist now.
Dear. I don't need to discuss any one of you. They all have their qualities. These guys are all good. Yeah, this is my first time doing this thing. So anyway, let's talk about Castlevania. This is a Metroidvania thing. So we talk about Metroid Fusion, Metroid Zero Mission. This is Castlevania. It's called Circle of the Moon in America. This is probably the hardest Castlevania game on the system. If you want a challenge, this is the one to go for. You then have Harmony of Dissonance. This is very expensive now.
Yes.
This was another challenging game. This one is like in the universe of Richter Belmont and doing the French Revolution, so it continues that story. If you're familiar with the storyline. This is a challenging game as well. Probably my least favorite because it is a bit all over the place. But this is the gold standard, Aria of Sorrow. This is probably the easiest out of the Castlevania games, but it's the one that is most sought after because they didn't make enough of these, and these are quite collectible actually. But I love this, and it was so good they made a sequel on the DS called Dawn of Sorrow. But this is one you must play. This is a must play for the system, in my opinion. So that's the Metroidvania style games, and there's more than enough to be honest. That I haven't even got collected or whatever. So you have those. Right, now, I want to quickly go through the RPGs because I have most of them are RPGs.
All right, Joe, perk up your ears. These are the RPG portions then.
All right, so this game is gold. Okay, Mario Luigi Superstar Saga. It had sequels that went onto the DS. Yeah, Partners in Time or whatever. They even remade this on the DS, and the remake is as good as this. But this is a really good game. If you like Mario RPG on the Super Nintendo, this is for you. All right,
Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga. Excellent game.
This game is a little treasure. I think you might have heard me talk about it in other chats, but I love Sigma Star Saga. It's made by it's a game made by WayForward, who did the Shantae series, and they've actually recently done the River City Girls game on the Switch. If you're familiar with it, anything they do in terms of 2D games is gold. This is a really good RPG. It's a shoot 'em up / RPG game, so it's got some really good story elements. And if you like science fiction, this is for you.
I was about to mention it has. I heard it has a very good storyline to it.
It's an amazing story. They could televise it. They could sell it onto Netflix and make a show. I'd watch it. That's how good it is. I love. It's a mind-blowing story. It's not so original. I love it, and I read a lot of science fiction. Sword of Mana. If you like Mana games, Secret of Mana. This is for you. All right, this is it. So we got that.
Sword of Mana. Yes.
These two are really rare. These two are really good. I'm going to show you. This is a game. Band Presto made them. Atlas, who are now bought by Sega, have the IPs now.
Oh, the Summer Night series. Yes.
Right. So these. Good luck finding these in a box in good condition because these are very hard. I have them in Perspex cases because of how rare they are. If you can play these games, play them. They're really good action RPGs. And
Summer Night Swordcraft Story 1 and 2, ladies
2,
and gentlemen, in the audio portion of the podcast.
Yeah. So there's that. This is one that a lot of people love. It's called Final Fantasy Tactics Advance. I acquired this through chance. Let's put it that way. I don't get the love for it, but it sold a lot of copies. It's a very popular game. If you love Final Fantasy and tactics style games, this is the one for you. Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories. This is a great game. This is the first game on a handheld that I know from my knowledge on the GBA anyway that had a full motion video chip in the cartridge, so you can actually watch full motion movie clips in the game, and this is really good. And I really love the action RPG storytelling and the battle mechanic in this. This is a really good game, and you should play it for sure. So another great Square Enix RPG. Now this one is the gold standard for the advance in terms of RPGs. Okay. This is Golden Sun and Golden Sun: The Lost Age. Right?
There you go. Golden Sun series. Yes.
This is such an emotional beat.
Golden Sun. Right.
So yeah, and you got the sequel. So both good games. Great sound, great story, great battle, turn-based RPG. If you like Final Fantasy VII, this is like Final Fantasy VII in your hands. That's what I will say. And it's just a very, very colourful.
And developed by Camelot Software.
Camelot Software, who actually the same Camelot, which were known as Camelot Software Planning, before they were known as Sonic Software Planning, who made the Shining Force games on the Mega Drive, which is something Dan will be pleased to know. It's got
Dan
some Sega DNA
there you go.
Sega DNA there. Now these ones are like gold as well, yeah, and everyone's going to be like, wow, Fire Emblem. Okay.
Oh, Fire Emblem.
The franchise got its first Western release on the Game Boy Advance. This is its first debut title. Whoa. This is the first ever one we ever got. This is it. This is Fire Emblem and its sequel, Sacred Stones. Both of these are gold. Yeah, these are gold games. Great strategy RPGs. Amazing. My brother loved these.
And they also cost gold.
They also cost gold.
They go for about. They're over £100 for each one. But you got some other stuff. So you got Final Fantasy 1 and 2 Dawn of Stone. So if you missed out on the original Final Fantasy on the NES, you got a nice. And the soundtrack on this is really good as well. They've enhanced the sound. Really good game.
Very true.
I never thought of loving and hating someone at the same time.
This is one of Dan's games. He loves Fantasy Star. This is Star 1, 2, and 3.
For Dan, it's the Fantasy Star Star collection. There you
go. So you got the first three, and this is how I was introduced to the franchise.
Fantasy Star.
So a really good trilogy here. of games. So that's my RPG collection done. There are many more RPGs on the system, which I haven't mentioned, such as the Mega Man Battle Network series, which there were like 8 of. There's so many, but they're the ones that I owned, and that's what we're talking about. And I'm sure you'll bring up something that I don't own. Now, this is the action genre, okay, or platformer genre, platformer stuff. So this is Yoshi's Island or Super Mario Advance 3. Now, this is a great port. I never actually played. This is the one of the 4 Mario Advance games. This is the one I never played on the original hardware. That's why I bought this one. Wonderful game. Okay, for those who haven't played it, this is a really good port. And even the SNES one on the SNES Classic Mini, you can play it. But it's a wonderful game. So you have that. So let's talk about other ports as well. So you've got Donkey Kong Country and Donkey Kong Country 2. They speak for themselves. I don't need to go on about it. They're SNES classics, and they're putting on the Game Boy Advance, and they're good ports. Okay, and this is the one where I really respect Sega. I really respect them for what they did. And you've got Sonic Advance 2, and Sonic Advance 3.
Well, that would be Miss Charlene's specialties, the Sonic Advance series.
Yeah. So what I will say about these is that they're all different from each other. They all play different from each other. So yeah.
Sorry, Miss Charlene. Go ahead. Your signal seems to be a little spotty right now, but you had a question, Miss Charlene.
Okay, go for it. You got a question? Go for it.
Oh, can you hear me? Hello?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, I have a question here. So, Sir Viraj, if you can give me those 3 games here, I would be
oh my goodness.
Get those.
Yeah. Okay, I'll think about it. I'll think about it. These are quite cheap though. These are
Retro
quite
Freak will get it first before you.
Viraj, you're my new BFF, ha? It's perfect time.
No.
Raymond says you're his new BFF. There you go.
Right. So they all play different from each other. So if you want something that's more traditional, like the Mega Drive games, that's that one. If you want something with speed, something that goes really fast, it's this one. And if you want something with exploration elements, you want to go with this one. So they all have different spins on them, which is what I love about the Sonic Advance series. Sega did something original instead of doing lazy porting like what Nintendo did. So respect to Sega for that. And I've got Rayman 3, which is just I got this cheap. It's a good platform.
Rayman is a good franchise. Rayman is a good franchise.
It's a good franchise. So those are the platformers. Now let's have a look at some of the more hardcore action games that I have.
Yeah.
This is one for Dan because he loves Sega. This is Sega Arcade Gallery. They got Afterburner, Outrun, Space Harrier, Super Hang On. I know people have said that they're not. I've seen some reviews where they said that the port of Afterburner is a bit spotty, but this is how I was introduced to these games. I never played them before 2003. That's when these came out. But this particular port came out. It had a low res sound, but I love this port. It's gold, and it does go for a bit now. So
Game Boy did have a lot of good arcade ports. I have to admit that one.
Medal of Honor Infiltrator. Now, this is an EA game. Surely I'm going to hell, right? Maybe. This is actually a really good top-down shooting game, and it's one that you should definitely give a go at. It's actually a really, really good one. We'll come to Mega Man. I'll see some comments in a minute. We'll get to Mega Man. We'll do that.
In defense for EA, I think that they're not as evil as they were once before, right?
Agreed. Actually,
not evil. Maybe a teaspoon less evil.
Yeah, and they about they're at original 100% level. I'd say they're about 85% now. So there you go.
Right.
We have some Sega here again.
Oh,
so
nice choices.
Sega and Treasure.
Astro Boy, love that game.
This is a beautiful game. It is amazing. It's a game that's gone under the radar. It's made by Sega, Hitmaker, and Treasure Games, who made Gunstar Heroes on the Mega Drive. An amazing game. Give it a go if you can.
And the nice thing about the Astro Boy Omega Factor game is that it has a very good respect for the original anime.
Yeah,
it's a good game.
Definitely. Gunstar Future Heroes. It's called Gunstar Superheroes in America. It's the PAL version. In America. This is the only sequel, because Treasure Games are known to just make the game and be done with it. This is the only game they made a sequel of, and it's an amazing game. So another one that's worth going for as well.
Nice. Oh, actually, a little bit of an interjection right now. Sir Pao has never owned a Game Boy Advance, so this is going to be his intro to Game Boy Advance games as well.
This is amazing.
Sir Pao, I hope you're taking notes about the very good games that Viraj is mentioning right now, because those are the games that we are going to be expecting that you play on your streams, and we look forward to your reactions on them as well. Okay.
He's actually listing the games right now.
He's listing the games right now.
Metal Slug Advance, an amazing running game by SNK Playmore. What can I say? Give that a go. If you're hard, you can play this game. That's hard.
Right. Do you have any Mega Man games? Just a special request from one of our audience.
Your timing is impeccable. I think entire Mega Man Zero.
There you go,
release.
Chris.
So you got Mega Man Zero. Mega Man Zero. This I got this on. This is a 2002 release. It was one of the earlier Mega Man games that I got. Love it. Love this game. It's hard, but it's good. Okay. Mega Man Zero.
You have a new best friend.
All right.
Interested. There you go.
You got Mega Man Zero 2, which came out in 2003. This is probably the hardest out of the four. And it's a people's favorite because it is difficult, but I like it. And then you have Mega Man Zero 3, which is my personal favorite of them all. So you have that. There is actually a Mega Man Zero 4, which I did beat, but I don't own it because it was so easy. But Mega Man Zero 4 is a good game.
Okay,
well.
We have a special request. We have a special request here from the audience. Boss Jeff Sardalia of Tito Popo Gaming, and Jefes Gutierrez at Tutubo says, "Can you open at least one of them to show what's on the inside of one of the Mega Man cartridges?"
Ladies and gentlemen, for what we know, Sir Barrage is only showing us the boxes.
Yeah,
We'll be here all day if we open every. We'll be here if we open every cartridge. And
there you go. Of course. Yeah.
Anyway. Welcome to our unboxing segment.
All right, continue, Barrage.
We've got two more genres left, and we're more or less done. So we have shoot 'em ups. So I did
Iridium
2.
That's
Iridium 2. So this is a sequel to Iridium
2,
3D. So Iridium 3D was the first one. I didn't get that because this one's the one I wanted to get because it's a proper good game. Amazing soundtrack by Manfred Linzer.
Iridium 2, really good.
Made by Shilling Entertainment and published by Majesco Games. Definitely one to go for. For those of you looking to emulate, it's a tough one to emulate, to be honest. So playing on original hardware is the best way.
Yeah.
So we got that. And this is obviously a port from a Mega Drive game called Desert Strike Advance. It's an EA game. Only released in America. I had to get this because I love Desert Strike.
Desert Strike is a great series. And the GBA game, the GBA port is a very good port of it. Yes.
That's correct. So we're going to look at my puzzle games because I've got a number of them. So I have 2 Sega puzzlers. So I've got a Puyo Pop, which is basically Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine in your hands.
Okay.
And you have Super Monkey
Ball Jr.
Now, this game, weirdly enough, it actually looks better than the DS successor to it graphically, because I think they had a 3D chip in the cartridge that made it look really good. So that's the one to really play as well. It's a really well-made game. Bubble, you can't go wrong with that, right? Old and new, so it's old and new, so they've actually updated the graphics and sound, so you can play it old and new. So you have that.
How good!
And then you have this one. This one's a big one. Mario vs. Donkey Kong. This was a new one for the franchise, and there was a sequel on the DS as well, Master of the Minis. But the original is really good, definitely worth having. Now, as an interesting one for the Sony PlayStation fans, look, we got Klonoa.
Klonoa, yes.
I think there were another 2 Klonoa games.
Right.
This is a really good puzzle platform game, and one that I'd recommend. It's a really good one. So there you go. So you have that. I have Columns Crown and Choo Choo Rocket, another couple of Sega puzzle games that I have there. So Columns is Columns, Choo Choo Rocket's a Dreamcast game we all know about, and Columns is like an updated Mega game. So that's pretty much it. And also, I think I already talked about my NES Classic, so that's my collection. I don't have any Dragon Ball games. For somebody who's asked about Dragon Ball games, I have played Dragon Ball Z, Legacy of Goku, and Legacy of Goku 2. Amazing Dragon Ball games. But I don't own them, sadly. But they're worth playing as well. So yeah, that's my entire collection. I'll give it back to you because I've hogged the limelight long enough.
Oh no, it's perfectly fine. Everybody has just been slavering and drooling over your collection, Viraj. The thing is, we here in Timeless Gamer are very privileged to have had a look at Viraj Katwadia's collection, because again, here we appreciate people who collect. We appreciate people who have put in the hours to really curate what they have in terms of their hardware and then their software. So it's a very special treat for us, Viraj, to have actually had a look at what you've got and to showcase to us what the good and the great when it comes to the Game Boy Advance. Joe looks like he's got a little bit of an opinion to offer as well.
We have a few questions from the crowd. We're giving notice to Sir Bell.
Yes, Bel Valenzuela, the captain and the fearless leader of Pinoy Retro Gaming, who says, "Do you have Pocky and Rocky with Becky?"
I have it on Super. Well, no. Sorry.
No.
I know it's a great game. I know it's a great game. With
Uh-huh.
regret, I don't have. It's just what I've showed you is what I have, sadly.
And of course, Tito Jano
Yeah.
of Angel Santos, one of the foremost and premier members of Pinoy Retro Gaming as well, who is asking, do you have wizardry in GBA Wizardry?
It's the same answer as the question before. Just what
Mm.
I've got here, pal. You know, it's not just what I got. You know, sadly,
Ah,
I couldn't.
Go ahead,
Bill goes
go ahead,
up.
Viraj.
Sadly, it's just what I got. So everything I've just shown you is everything that I have. This is my entire collection.
That's his entire
I
collection.
don't have Mr. Driller 2 on GBA, but I've got Mr. Driller Drill Spirits on the DS. So I have that as a saving
There you
grace.
go. I'll have to call on Miss Porter here because Miss Porter and I share a love of DOS games. And Miss Porter, have you ever played the Wizardry series?
I haven't. It's the first time I've heard of it right now.
It's a dungeon crawler series.
Yeah.
I would highly recommend
on
it.
the NES.
I would highly recommend it to Miss Ensign Porter because Miss Porter and I are planning on doing a DOS episode sometime in the near future, and highly recommended Miss Porter that you try at least one of the Wizardry games because that is a really good dungeon crawling series. Ray Q, JDM, if you can do me the honor of reading the chat from Reiki and probably a couple of others too.
Oh yes, Reikyu says, "Thank you for sharing your collection, Viraj.
Translated for him
He's
as well.
envious of you."
There you go. He's envious.
Listen,
Okay.
Don't be envious. I wasted my life. I've got no life now. This is it, you know. Wasted all my money on this stuff.
Viraj,
you know?
an old
I'd
saying
rather have
goes.
the money back. I want the money back now.
An old saying goes: "A life enjoyed and lived to the fullest is never wasted."
Oh, thank you.
There
Thank
you go.
All right.
All right, very good showcase from Viraj. And I'm not quite sure if he touched on a couple of the other popular franchises and games for the GBA. Were you able to show off any of the Pokemon games, Viraj?
Right. So it's very interesting you mentioned Pokemon. I had this conversation, I think, in a private chat about Pokemon. Now, Pokemon is what made Nintendo a handheld power. When the Pokemon Red, Blue, and Green came out, Game Boy sold like hotcakes. The color sold like hotcakes.
Exactly.
With gold and silver made the Game Boy Color sell. That was a system seller. And even with the Game Boy Advance, it was Ruby and Sapphire and then Emerald. And I remember because when I worked in the game shop, there were 26 copies of Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire each. And all these other games, like say I've got this game, there are only like 3 copies. I had 1 on the shelf and 2 in the back. So Pokemon was so popular, that was the game. And I'll tell you why it was popular. Is that the parents only had to buy that one game with the system, and that was their kid happy. And that game is so involving, as you can pump in so many hours of gameplay on it, you don't have to buy any other games. But me, I'll get bored very quickly. I'd rather have all of this than just one Pokemon game. And that's what it was. So I do have Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire Pinball, as I mentioned. But Pokemon is a big. But Pokemon, it was a big franchise for Nintendo. I know it sounds a bit wrong me admitting that in my collection when I'm talking about the Game Boy Advance. Pokemon is Game Boy. That's where it came from. And
Viraj was showing his box copy of Pokemon Pinball Ruby and Sapphire. I've only got the loose copy.
Yeah, I've got the box one because I'm better than you. But
I
know.
And I fully admit to that.
Okay, I'm not better than anyone.
Understood. No worries.
You guys probably have collections that outright me in terms of your PS2s and everything. Game Boy Advance is my baby.
Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, we here in Timeless Gamer are perfectly fine with joshing each other because we're all good with jokes. We're all good with having a good time with each other because that's one thing that's missing in nowadays. Everybody being able to make fun of each other and have fun with each other. Let's all just have fun. Let's all just enjoy each other's company. Let's all take a few jokes and have a few cracks.
Oh, I forgot one more game. I can't believe I forgot it. It was just sitting here. Mario Kart. It's the only racing game I own. All right, this is a big game. I can't believe I forgot it. But yeah, that's
Mario
very
Kart.
Super Circuit. There's always one Mario Kart on every Nintendo console. They only make 2. They only make 1. There was obviously F-Zero, and there were so many Need for Speed games on the Advance. But this is another thing I want to make a point about quickly. Go ahead. Like games like Sega did Sega Rally, Crazy Taxi. They're all right, but the thing is, when you make a 3D game on a system that's pushing its limits, the graphics just look really pixelated, and they were just no fun to play. They were too jarring for me, and that's why I think games like Mario Kart, maybe F-Zero can get away with it. But you know what? Mario Kart is as much of a racing game as I really wanted on that handheld. It's only with the next generation with the DS that the graphics get smoother. Like I've got Diddy Kong Racing on my Nintendo DS, and that's amazing. That's an N64 port, and I think really racing games really went into their own in the 32-bit, 64-bit era rather than the 16-bit stuff. That's why I
Although,
only have Mario Kart Super
if I
Circuit.
remember correctly, Sega Rally had a really good game on
Yeah,
the Game Boy Advance.
it
We
did.
have
It was good. It was
we
good.
have a question here from our fearless leader Bel Valenzuela, who says, "Love to see all your collections, Viraj. Do you also collect some Japan games?"
Not for the advance. I have some Japan. I might have a Japan game on my Nintendo DS, and that's to do.
Mm.
And that we'll talk about another time, but not on the advance.
There you
Yeah.
go. All right, Japan games. I don't even I can't even begin to fathom how large the Game Boy Advance library might be if we actually factor in the Japan games as well, not just
Yeah.
the US or English translated
The,
games, but the Japan games. I imagine it would make the entire GBA collection stupendous. I can only imagine.
yes.
Hmm.
Yes, that's for
There
sure.
you go. All right. So we touched on Pokemon, the Mario series. Viraj showed
Agree.
a few good ones, particularly the Superstar Saga. Legend of Zelda. He mentioned the Minish Cap, and I think Miss Charlene was also able to mention that a little bit earlier as well in the newly released Nintendo Switch online library, if I remember correctly.
That game is hard. That's a hard
The
game.
Minish Cap. There you
Yeah,
go.
I'll tell you
It's
that
just
now.
um,
Hardest 2D Zelda game. I'll tell you that now.
Well, also one franchise that really made a good impact on the Game Boy Advance series. Just a really quick mentions because we talked about it a little bit on a prior Timeless Gamer podcast. You might want to check out the prior Timeless Gamer podcasts on our archive in YouTube, Timeless Gamer PRG, or on Spotify and all the audio podcasts. We talked a little bit about uh farming games. So one genre that kind of really made a good impact
Harvest
on the
Moon.
handheld was the Harvest Moon series.
Yeah.
Harvest Moon Boy and Girl. Was it Boy and Girl if I remember correctly? A few other Harvest Moon games on the Game Boy Advance were made their homes on the Game Boy Advance, and a lot of people sunk a lot of time in them because yeah, the farming games are amazing. JDM raising his hands. Juan de Marcos. Yes, go ahead,
Yeah, the
JDM.
about the Harvest games, was it the like GBA port of the PS1 game
It
or
is, yes. The
uh
Harvest Moon GBA game is not a direct port, but a not a one-to-one port, but it
uh
is the PlayStation 1 game on your handheld system,
but
really.
did it have any like uh other games aside from the
If I remember correctly, let me just try and remember. I do remember a lot of the Harvest Moon games really made their homes on the DS
Fine.
though. But the Game Boy Advance versions of Harvest Moon, more Friends of Mineral Town, if I remember correctly, was was really one of the games that you would sink countless number of hours into, and would stay fun from beginning to end. Joe would contest that because of his playthrough of Harvestella, but you know what can I say? Joe's introduction was a little troubled in terms of
It
farming
was a
games.
crash course, yes.
There you go. All right, so Viraj basically showcased us an amazing selection of Game Boy Advance games, but actually, first things first, let's have a very quick look at the chats because the people have been clamoring for their favorites on the chats. Let's see. Jarkus did say that there'll be a remake soon. Harvest Moon, Boy, Girl, and non-binary. Okay, I mean, heck, uh, uh, uh,
What?
modern times. We acknowledge modern times, but we are firmly retro in Timeless
I
Gamer.
would also
Uh,
like to acknowledge down there Miss
mm,
Momo Quinch, the better
yes.
half of Mamuchu.
Yes, Mamuchu's better half. Momo Cringe
Oh,
says, Harvest Moon, Hero of Leaf Valley is one of my favorites. A lot of tasks to do. Yes, completely agree with that one. Actually, any kind of Harvest Moon will, once you get tossed into it, once you get into the flow of it, it will eat away hours of your life. Christian Esagunde says, Harvest Moon, if released in Game Boy Color version before in GBA. Yes, it did actually release in Game Boy Color. It actually released in DMG originally, if I remember correctly. But there are a ton of games which we will segue into. Everybody here in the panel is now invited to mention their two most favorite Game Boy Advance games. Garage, you'll go a little later. Let's give
Okay.
other members a
Yeah,
little bit.
thank you. I need time to think. I need time to think, actually. So
Yeah,
thank
yeah,
you.
I'll give you a moment to catch your breath,
Yeah,
and we'll let all the other panelists have a go.
I have to
Limit,
look through all this and make up one.
yes,
Okay.
two of your most favorite Game
Two.
Boy Advance games.
Okay.
But for those of you who have not played the Game Boy Advance games yet, two of the games that you are kind of looking forward to playing now that you've been introduced to the Game Boy Advance. Let's begin with JDM. Let's have JDM's two most
Uh,
favorite Game Boy Advance games, or the games that you are kind of looking forward to play. All right.
yeah, two favorite GBA games. Actually, I was late in
Mm,
the GBA games because back in 2001,
mm,
I was only limited to the PS1
mm,
because I was back then I was in the province, so
mm,
I didn't have any um, I don't have any means to buy any handheld
mm.
consoles or the newer ones like the PS2. I didn't even know the PS2 came out on 2001. So I played Mega Man Battle Network back in I
Ah,
believe
Hmm.
2005,
good choice. Good
and
The first
choice.
one.
I
The
yeah,
first
the
one.
first
Yeah.
one. I've
Mm,
invested like quite some time playing Mega Man Battle Network. So it's about this kid called Lan Hickory.
mm.
Fun fact: Lan is derived from the acronym Local Area
Local area
Network,
network.
right?
Yes.
You're
A little bit of
into
wordplay
computer
there.
networking.
Mm,
So in the year 20XXAD, as like homage to the previous Mega Man games. Everyone was into like it. They have this version of the metaverse where they could. I think what they call their word. It's their version of the internet where you can
Yeah.
jack in and do tasks like send emails and stuff.
yes.
And instead of um, the internet, they have this guide called PETs or
Mm,
uh, yeah, that one. When you jack in inside the network, you become an avatar of your pet, which is this one, Mega Man.
yes.
Rockman XA in
Mm,
Japanese
in
version.
Japanese, yes.
So this is very innovative because the reason why I played this is I to be honest I'm not really good in platforming games. So we know Mega Man as a platformer game,
Mm,
but this one has like a tactical strategy element. So it's like it's not really a turn-based game, but
Yeah.
it's a real-time strategy where you can use cards to attack your enemies.
very true.
And
Hmm.
the plot is there's this like organization that like hijack the network called the W3 World 3 was it? So strange phenomena are happening inside the network, much like in real life, right? You have hackers and those sorts, and you have this a group of kids fighting off these hackers. So it has story. It's not just like you play or um, beat enemies. It also has story. So it's one of my favorite games for the GBA. And the second one is going
Mm.
to be the famous Final Fantasy Tactics Advance,
Ah, good choice.
uh,
Very good
Okay.
choice.
which is
Mm.
also
Hmm.
a tactical RPG.
Mm.
There we
Um,
go. I've got it. There we
it has
are.
it almost has the same plot
Hmm.
of the Mega Man Battle Network because you have this bunch of kids who got
Isekai.
um, isekai, right?
Yes.
It's another isekai game
Mm.
to place called Ivalice,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
and through if I remember, it's through a book that one of the siblings of the main character.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So they went inside this world called Ivalice, and I think there's one of the kids in the city was like the emperor, or is the upcoming, like, is going to be the next in kin.
Mm-hmm.
And what I like about this game is it's a tactical strategy game,
Mm-hmm.
RPG game. It's the, if you're a fan of the original game for the PS1, the Final Fantasy Tactics, you will love this game.
Mm-hmm.
And it appealed to me, and I think most of people will agree with me. It appeals to your eyes because it looks like cartoonish,
Mm-hmm.
unlike the original game where it's rich in story. This one, even if you're a casual gamer, you can play this. The story is not that like massive,
Mm-hmm.
and you have these cute characters that they have added. You can now play as Mogos,
Mm-hmm.
those um Banga was it? Banga, right?
Yes.
And
Mm-hmm.
the Viera, those uh those rays that have this rabbit ears,
Mm-hmm.
then they're mostly female. So this is like for me, this is like, I love tactical strategy RPGs.
Mm-hmm.
Uh it's like the offspring of Gary Kasparov and Gary Gygax at the same time. So the
Uh,
Grand Chess Master and Gary Gygax of Dungeons and Dragons.
That's a really good analogy, JDM. A love child between Gary Gygax and Gary Kasparov.
Yeah. I
Nicely
just
played.
realized that they almost have the same name except for Gary Kasparov that had an additional R in it.
Yeah, that's
And
true.
also, may I add, if I could add one more, like a wild card
We'll allow it.
from the
Go ahead.
GTA.
Mm.
Okay. So we have, if you're into open world games, you
Mm.
also have GTA Advance. You can play GTA on the go with
Oh
GTA
yeah,
Advance.
GTA on the go.
It's
Grand Theft Auto.
it's the, like, the, what they call this. It's the prequel for the game GTA 3 that was released in
Mm.
2001, and this was
Yes.
released in 2005. They did some, like, first they did expand the story a little bit, and it's the same location, Liberty
Mm.
City.
Liberty
You
City.
have a
Yes.
unique literally, it's canon to the game, to the whole series, the 3D universe.
Mm.
So you're like in a Mexican standoff with the Yardes and
Mm.
the, I forgot, like the Yakuzas.
Mm.
So you play like a double agent between. And if, as you can see on the video, it has the classic GTA vibes because you
Yeah,
have the top down perspective that you see
GTA 1
in
and
the
2
first.
had the
Yeah,
original top-down perspective.
yeah.
One didn't have too much of a story to it. It was just fulfilling missions and everything. 2 got a little got kind of deep into the story, but 3 was where it all kicked off. And GTA Advance, as JDM has mentioned, is a pretty good entry into the series as well.
It's
JDM,
Yeah.
continue. Yeah, you were about to say
Right.
Viraj.
well, just very quickly on Grand Theft Auto Advance. I have played this game. The
Mm,
only criticism I'd say is it was a bit slow in terms of how
it
it moved, but I think that's
And
the limitations of the hardware.
yeah.
But
right,
it was
right.
actually groundbreaking that this was actually on the system. There was
Mm,
also a Grand Theft Auto game on the Game Boy Color as well. Just want to throw that in there as well. But
Game Boy
there's
Color. I
nothing.
don't think I've ran across that one. Really?
Oh,
Or was it?
yeah,
Oh,
really.
was it just a port of GTA 2, if I remember correctly?
Probably, yeah. But
Yeah.
no, it's definitely outstanding.
Mhm.
Very quickly again, I just want to touch on the other two games you mentioned, which was Mega Man Battle Network. And this is really interesting, and this is actually a feature the Game Boy Advance had, which nobody talks about. You can do cross compatibility with games. So I've got Boktai 2 here, and on the back of the game box, you can actually connect characters from here to Mega Man Battle Network 5. And Mega Man Battle Network 5 to Capcom and Konami had some sort of arrangement where those games were cross compatible with characters and stuff. It says it on the back of the box of so I just want to touch that, and that's really good. And yeah, Mega Man Battle Network, great game. ACDC Town, Land, all the little acronyms for the computer world that you're in and you're fighting the viruses. It's actually a very, very cool game. And Final Fantasy Tactics Advance. I mean, I know we say we don't endorse piracy, but this is a story of mine. So what I do, just so before I buy a game, is emulation was rampant for Game Boy Advance in 2003, 2004. And I used to run a ROM site, and Nintendo shut me down. That's another story. But the fact of the matter is, out of all the games that were most I had a download meter, Final Fantasy Tactics Advance was the most downloaded ROM I had on that site. It was very popular. People love that game.
It's Final Fantasy.
It's Final Fantasy, yeah, and it's a nice little intro to the tactical strategy genre. All right, excellent. Thank you very much, JDM. Excellent choices. And I think it's because it's people who have not tried the Mega Man Battle Network series will have the chance now because the Nintendo Switch just came out with the Mega Man Battle Network collection, if I remember correctly. One and two. It's just terrible, though, that it's impossible to find right now. If you guys are looking around for it, it's going to be really, really hard to find. Okay.
You can download it.
You can get it from Viraj.
Yes, that Viraj was mentioning that one.
I will say something about that game very quickly. That it's lost its pixel perfect look. It has like a weird, like sort of someone's put cream all over the lens of that game. So it doesn't have that same
my
look,
gosh! Look at the guy flexing what he's got. And here I am scrambling around for a copy.
That's Land Hickory right there.
You made that. You pre-ordered that one, didn't you, Joe? Joe is showing Mega Man Battle Network
during my immediate
oh my
on
god!
my emergency return to the Philippines a while back, so I got this. The only game that I bought from Data Blitz. I said I can only afford one,
but it's well worth it.
I can only afford one.
I mean, how many games are in that one, Joe? Have a quick look at the back of the box. How many games are inside?
It says here, Sir Viraj might know more about this one. But the back says Mega Man Battle Network Legacy Collection Volume 1.
Yeah,
which has
Mega Man
4
Battle
games.
Mega Man Battle Network 2, Mega Man
And
Battle
the Battle
Network
Network
3 Black,
Collection 2, which has 6 games, so a total of 10 at least.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, there were so many on the Advance, it's ridiculous. And that's not even including Mega Man Battle Network Chip Challenge. You know, there's so many they made.
Great value for your purchase, Joe. I would say with that one, you've got tons of gameplay on the go.
One of the reasons why I got this first, out of everything that has been released, on the same time, the same season that this came out, I had a feeling this will go rare.
It
So
will.
I might as well just buy it now.
It will. Yeah.
Either this or Atlayer Raisa 3 with the thick ties. I'm like, I can get those ties anytime I want.
I knew that was exactly why Joe got those.
Trinity
got that
Trigger.
one for.
Trinity Trigger, they didn't. Trinity Trigger says it got mixed reviews, so I said, okay, I'm not gonna get that one too.
Okay.
And then you got what else that came out with this one? So and then this one. I'm like, okay, I'm getting Mega Man.
Well, there you go. So a little bit of the chats, a very quick look. Mel Bryan with Stanley says, nothing to see here, Mark Zuck. Nothing to see here. Excellent. There you go. And of course, Kiko Granale says, magandang gabi sa inyong lahat. So translated, that's good evening to everybody. Kiko Granale did say that. So very good. Jarko Zajiban says, back guys, Quake was minor but woke everyone up. My phone just got flooded with messages. I did not know that, Jarkos, that there was a quake that just happened right now. I hope everybody's all right. JDM, he has his hand raised.
Yeah, quick shout out to my good friend Kurt Labrado of Damon Fox Gaming, who's
Mm,
a good friend of mine here in Cebu City. He's on the chat
mm.
and is contributing some games in the
Nice.
chat.
Very
Oh,
good.
I would also like to give you a quick shout out to Sir Lee of the G3 podcast, also there in the chat earlier.
Lee Charles Delena, there you go. Hello, Lee of the G3 podcast, a very good friend of ours. Very informative podcast as well. Um, yeah, just say hi to them if you guys get the chance. Julius Ikdao with the exclamation point notify. Thank you very much for the point notify. For those of you in Facebook, exclamation point notifies will either subscribe you to us, allow you to follow us, so that whenever we pop up with our Timeless Gamer podcast, you will be notified, or you'll find out if you're already following us or subscribed to us. Which if you are, we're saying thank you very much. Jarkus Zajiban says, yeah, Australia's on a big plate, but the Eastern Ranges are on a mini plate. Oh, okay. I did not know that. I always thought Australia was just, steady one large landmass. That's why you guys have all
We
those
hardly
dangerous
get
animals over
any
there.
earthquakes here.
Mm.
Hardly.
Okay, and then I thought that was one of the main reasons why you guys had all those dangerous animals over there. Like the
Ah, no.
bear. So
It's a
In
yeah.
that
totally
case, time to
different. It's a
migrate.
total different thing.
All right. All right. So thank you very much, JDM. Those are JDM's two favorite Game Boy Advance games with one bonus. Let's now hop on to Miss Charlene. No, no, for somebody who hasn't had too much of a chance to speak with first, Miss Porter. What games do you have so far for the Game Boy Advance? Two. Either
Two.
two that you already have, or two that you're looking forward to playing.
So before I begin with the two, I'll just quickly mention games I love on the Game
Mm,
Boy before I go to my favorites. So
yes.
this one is Van Helsing.
Oh, nice.
It's a
Van Helsing.
very nice
Oh my god.
beat 'em up
Oh my
game.
god.
It
Mm,
has actually a PS2 version, and this one feels like Onimusha because you level up, you get orbs, you get
mm,
magic and health. So that's why I love the game.
mm.
And in regards to the question earlier, we have the Dragon Ball Z Legacy of
Ah,
Goku two
Legacy of
and
Goku
three.
and
Oh,
Boost Fury. There
yeah.
you go.
Oh,
So
looks like
I
your
love
mother is a
action
Dragon Ball
RPGs.
fan.
I
Mm,
love action RPGs, and I love both these games. So you can level up, and it's a beat 'em up game as well. So
mm.
it's fun. So for
Very
my
good.
actual favorites, I actually do not have a cartridge of this one.
Mhm.
Has anybody played Sims Busting Out?
Ah, Sims busted out right here.
Yes,
Sims busted out.
I
Yes.
had
Go
a
ahead.
feeling, Sir Joel. I had a feeling.
Yes. Go ahead. Describe Sims busting out to us,
So
Miss Porter.
Sims Bustin' Out is a game on the Game Boy, but there's actually different iterations of the game. There's one on Xbox, GameCube, PlayStation 2.
Mhm,
This one on the. Sorry, I'm looking for the video.
mhm. Well,
This one on.
Joe can do us the favor of that one, but please continue, Miss Porter.
There, I'm trying to share my screen. Oh, there it is. So Sims Bustin' Out is a 2D game on the Game Boy, of course 2D. So instead of the usual Sims where we plan the lives of our Sims and let them go about their lives just giving commands, in this one we actually control one Sim, and there are
Mm,
tasks that you have to do like this one. This is the main character's uncle, so you do tasks.
yes.
There's actually a story on this game, so it's kind of
Mm,
linear, I think. There's a lot of things you can do. You can earn money by
mm,
doing. There's the picking up of garbage and
mm.
whatnot. You
Yes.
can do things for other people. You earn money, and
Mm,
there's actually I don't know how to describe it because there are aliens. There's actually even right, and there's actually a spooky, creepy, eerie thing to this game that
mm,
people describe that gives them nightmares and stuff because of the soundtrack. Well, not this one, but
mm,
more on the DS game. So
mm.
what I like about this is you can control the sim and really move the sim, not just give commands. There,
Yes.
you can ride the
Zoink, he
harvest.
kind of looks like Shaggy.
Well, you
You
can
can
customize
customize.
your sim. Yes. Mm,
Yes, you can customize the sim. So you earn money, but like that, for cleaning the lawn and
Mm-hmm.
other stuff. It's been a long while since I last played it, so it's on my wish list to get an actual cartridge on this. There are a couple on eBay, and I hope to get this one sometime in the future.
Ah, it's a good one. It's a really good choice, Miss Porter. Mm-hmm.
Yes, I recommend anybody who likes The Sims to play this,
Mm-hmm.
for a fresh breath of air in the franchise.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
There's actually
It.
DS version, but I like this one better for some reason.
Mhm. The nice thing about the Sims busting out is that it's task, sorry, mission oriented, and you don't. I mean, sure. The
Sure.
nice thing about the Sims is that you can actually do what you want. It's very open world. The missions here in busting out is that they actually give a little bit of structure to what you're supposed to be doing with your sim in Sims busting out. So excellent choice, Miss Porter. What is your second Game Boy Advance game?
So my second Game Boy Advance game is actually what Sir Viraj mentioned earlier. I only have the Japanese version. Super
Oh,
Mario.
oh,
Mhm.
yeah,
Well, I'm
Mario and Luigi
confused.
Superstar Saga. Yeah, Mario
Yes,
and
there.
Luigi Superstar Saga. That's what it's called. Yeah.
Yes, Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga, because it's confusing, but it says Mario and Luigi RPG. So I get
Yeah.
I tend to confuse the names. So what I love
Yeah.
about this game is, like Sir Viraj said earlier, if you love Super Mario RPG on the Super NES,
There we go.
There
you will
you
love this
go.
game. Yeah, he has
Yes.
There.
the original
Mhm.
English version in the box. I only have loose
Mhm.
starts in
That's
Japanese.
It's
fine.
that's
Hmm.
fine. That's fine. Alpha Dreams did a great job with this game, and I love it too. It's a game that's very close to my heart. Love it
Hmm.
how it played. Very
It's got a
funny as
great.
well.
It's got a great sense of humor. Yes, Viraj mentioned that. Yes, it's got an excellent sense of humor. Please continue, Miss Porter.
Indeed. There are lots of things you can do this with this game because I love action RPGs. Like I said earlier, here you
Mm-hmm.
can control both brothers and do it like that. Do combined
Mm-hmm.
moves. You can jump higher, move to gaps with
Mm-hmm.
the twist. You can actually do that on the modern games.
Mm-hmm.
This game made me purchase these.
Yes. Ah, there
Yes,
you
yeah,
And
go.
that's
Mhm.
it. Yeah,
The DS versions.
Yeah,
and
Bowser's
these.
Inside Story. Yeah.
All
So I love
right.
Uh,
the Mario
Show it,
RPG
show it, show it, show it
franchise
again.
there. There you go.
Yes, there you
yeah,
Show
There you
go.
it.
go.
it's spawned so many
There.
sequels. It's that good.
Nice.
Yeah, yeah.
There.
So beautiful.
Hmm. Good choices. I
Because
mean,
I'm not, yeah.
we know that it's a GBA centric game, but we are going to
Yeah.
touch on DS games. Yes, Miss Porter, continue.
Yeah, so what I love about this game is it's not turn based, basically.
Hmm.
Yes.
I like that you can, even within the battle, you can do action while, well, it's actually turn based, but you can do, well, it's not showing there, but
You press the A button over the guy,
yes.
you get a bonus attack. So when you jump on an item, you press A quickly to make your attack more powerful. So yes, you do have
Mm.
action RPG elements to it. Yes, it's a
Yes.
turn-based system, but it's actually a very well engineered game and very unique
Mm.
for its time and what it did. And that's what makes it a really good game for the system.
Mm. Agree.
Indeed.
Hmm.
Like Sir Raj said, I couldn't articulate it enough, but he got it. There. There you go.
Hmm. But
I
good
think you can
choices.
actually, sorry.
Continue, Miss Porter.
Uh,
Good.
you can also have combined moves here.
Mm.
It's been a long while since I've also played this game. I'm playing the modern ones right now, so I'm not
Hmm.
sure which ones from the modern games there are in the old games. The
Hmm.
combined moves, I mean.
For
Okay.
the combined game, I no, I the combined moves. Do they learn this throughout the game, or they have this firsthand?
It's like as they level up, you get to learn more moves. The
New.
brothers super moves. Yeah, it's been a while since I last played it. I forgot the names. I'm more on the modern games right now.
Hmm. To quote from the television show, you get hooked on the brothers. Okay, there you go. So JDM is nodding his head. He knows exactly what I'm talking about. All right, very good, excellent. Thank you very much, Miss Porter. Excellent choices. Now, from we're doing this boy girl. Okay, so at first we had JDM, then we have Miss Porter. Then let's jump onto somebody from the male species. Let's go to Viraj. Okay, Viraj,
Oh
let's
gosh.
hear You've had your breather. Let's hear your two favorite
I thought he was going to leave me to last.
GBA games now. There you go.
Yeah, I think it's going to do it last.
Get ready for some more eye candy, guys.
Okay, so it's in. I've already everything I've shown you anyway. But this is a tough one for me because as you can see, I've played so many of these games. Not just owning them. I played these on via emulation back in the day because I'm a bad man. But there are so many great games to this system. Most of which I own, and I'm glad that I did own these games. But look, this is the system where I explored so many new genres, and the Metroidvania genre was the first one that I experienced. Metroid Fusion, I thought, wow, this is the first Metroid game I played, by the way. And I love this game, but it actually told you where to do and what to go, but it was a very well-made game. And the Metroid games are easier when you get to that genre, but if you're like me, I like a bit of a challenge, and the other side of the coin for Metroidvania is, Metroid is Castlevania. And that's also where I was introduced to the sort of Metroidvania Castlevania game. So I never played Symphony of the Night. That's something I had to return to. So the first Castlevania games I really played was also on this platform. And there were 3. Now, the first one was really hard, and it hurt my hands to play it, but I beat it. The second one was difficult in terms of the way the map was, but I still played it and enjoyed it. This is actually, it's probably the only time I'll ever say the easiest game is my favorite, and that's Castlevania Aria of Sorrow. That's the game. Now, this is very, it just happens to be very rare and collectible for the system. It's a game that you should play. It's a staple for the system. I recommend that you should all give it a go if you haven't played a Castlevania game. I love it because, for those of you who played the Mega Drive, Super Nintendo, and NES Castlevania games, where this one continues. Okay, we've added a big map structure. We've got a map there. We have an exploratory element. It's not just a linear game. You have to obviously collect currency so you can go to the shop and get weapons. You have level up system as well. So some characters, like when you try to attack them, they take a lot more hit points, and every time you kill a character, you gain experience and you level up. So you have an action RPG element thrown in there. There's one for you, Joe. You like action RPGs? You've got an RPG element in this. You get extra weapons. You have so much depth to this gameplay. And this is actually set after the death of Dracula. This is actually the most recent canonically made game in the series of Castlevania. So Dracula's been defeated, but this is about a student called Soma Cruz who's inherited its powers, and it's about his castle mysteriously appears, and his girlfriend's gone missing, and you've got to try and work out what's going on, and the story and the plot thickens. So it's definitely a great game, and it's my favorite on the Game Boy Advance series for sure. So definitely one that you should all give a go, because the other two I would say are very difficult before it. But this one's actually playable for all people, and that's why it's a really, really good game to play. I recommend it to all of you sitting here because I think it's accessible to all of you via some other means. There's also a Castlevania Advance Collection on the Switch you can get, which has the 3 Castlevania games, and that's gold. Get it, download it on the eShop, or just buy it because they're all good games. All right, so you don't have to pay like £400, which is what this is going for. You don't have to do it. You can just download. You can just download you can either get the download code or play it legitimately by your Switch. So there's Castlevania.
A little bit of an interjection, Viraj, from our Timeless Gamer panelist, who sadly could not make it today, but is doing his best to hold the fort in chat. Dan Faulkner is saying, as Viraj will undoubtedly know, Aria of Sorrow is a big fave amongst the Castlevania community, up there with Symphony of the Night and Bloodlines as the most popular.
Definitely, I agree.
There you go. And from Miss Mama Cringe, when I heard about Makes My Finger Hurts, Castlevania came to mind, and it is. There you go.
Man, my thumbs are hurting on the first Castlevania Circle of the Moon. If you really want a challenge, Dan, I challenge you to beat that game. That's hard.
Oh, there you go.
Game to play. Dan, he likes hard games. Play that one.
I'm hearing Dan say in my mind right now, challenge accepted, mate. There you go.
Mate, yeah. All right. So the next game. Shall we move to the next one?
All right.
God, there are so many. There's so many great games on this system, and this is not me casting shade on them because I love all of my collection a lot. And I'm going to sell these eventually in July because they're just worth so much money, and I can play these by any means. Anyway. This one I'm actually quite reluctant to sell, and you'll see why when I show it to you. And this is actually my favourite game on the system. Okay, it's WarioWare Twisted.
WarioWare Twisted. Yes.
Now this game, what makes it so special? And I did show you the cart earlier. Here it is again. This is when Nintendo were. It's actually tells a really good story about Nintendo and the direction they were going with gyro sensing technology. This was obviously created before the Wii was out. Okay, and the Wii came out, and they used this
Mm.
technology in the Wiimote and the gyroscopic technology they were using. Now, this game, you basically you plug it into your Game Boy Advance, and the only button you have to press is the A button, and it's a motion sensor game. So you put the cartridge up in there, and you tilt the Advance, and you press A or whatever, and it's mini games. And basically you have about 10 to finish before you beat the level, and you've also got these new Wario characters, and they have these little micro games, and it's part of a weird quirky story, but the idea is you get through them, and again, like there's more of a challenge because you have less, you can actually make the game harder, so there's so much replay value. There's also unlockables in this as well, so you have a toy room, there's actually mini games you unlock. It's just there's just so much packed into this game that makes it, and this is the key word here, suitable for gaming on the go. It's a suitable handheld game that keeps you engaged and enthralled. As you can see, it's got some quirky graphics in there. It's really good, and it might think, "What is this? Is this really for me?" Yes, it is, because you will play it. When you play it, you're like, "Okay, it's simple." It's like basically, mini games on the go, and you never get bored because before one game is over, you've got another one and a new fresh start. So the game will always keep it fresh. Yes, this is the Mercury motion sensor on it. Darkus, he's commenting there, and it's actually very responsive. Actually, a really well made game, and it's innovative, and that's what I like about it.
Another game that's basically impossible to emulate, by the way.
Yeah, well, you can put a patch on it, but instead of like the motion sensor, you use the D-pad instead of going left and right, and you can do it, but it's not the same. Believe me, guys. The only way to play this game is via the actual way it is, and you know what? If you can get it, do it, because it's worth it. This is a game you should have in your collection. If you can get it, you'll never get bored. You'll never put it down because it's so addictive. It's such a good game. So those are my
Get
two
it from
favorite
Mirage.
games.
Get it from Barrage.
But yeah, this does go for a lot of money on eBay, by £250 if you want one. But yeah, anyway. But yeah, it's expensive. But if you can find it cheaper, cart only, go for it, I'd say. All right, but that's my two favorite. Again, I'm splitting hairs because that will change in time because I'll probably go back and think something else. But they're two very good games.
Well, that's the thing. That's the thing about our favorites. They constantly change. Sure, they might have an all-time favorite that will never ever change. But as you get to experience new things, they kind of shift. So the favorites that you have right now might not necessarily be the favorites that you have in the future. Hey, that's the nice thing about gaming. It's very, very dynamic. All right, thank you very much, Viraj, for your two favorite Game Boy Advance games. Let's hop on to the next. Let's hold on to our pattern and let us jump to the next female on our list, Miss Charlene. Let's listen to your two favorite Game Boy Advance games, either the ones that you've already played or the ones that you are kind of looking forward to playing.
Well, the ones that I've actually played is Dragon Ball Advance Adventure. So basically, this is based on the anime series of the first Dragon Ball. If you guys are actually familiar with that game on the Game Boy Advance, so literally this is based on Goku. So you can only play two characters, so that whether it's Goku, if you already finish the entire game, you can unlock Krillin. Basically, it's more like a adventure platform game, battle mode, like in your Tenkaichi Budokai, yeah, something like that. You can also upgrade, also level up against enemies. If you defeat all the boss levels, though, your HP level will be increasing more and more in time. Let's say, for example, if you beat Yamcha, Yamcha is like one of the first boss levels, then your HP level will be increasing. Even like your Kamehameha will be also increasing. Or something like that. So the final boss level will be here around is Piccolo. Piccolo is basically the last boss level on Dragon Ball, the first season. That's what I actually played all over again and again. So I'm actually
Back
looking forward to
when
see.
we gave Yamcha respect.
Back when
Yeah,
Yamcha was still something.
Yeah.
yes,
Yamcha meant
yeah,
something.
that's right. Well,
When
Yamcha used to be an
Yamcha
enemy
was
from
someone.
Goku. That's
Mhm.
right. Yamcha used to be an enemy from Goku, but now Goku became friends with Yamcha. So basically, he encounters so many friends like with Krillin, Master Roshi, Bulma. Let's see. I forgot the cat character though. Together with Yamcha. What's the name of the
Puwaru.
character again? Oh, there,
Puar.
Puwaru.
Puran.
Uap.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's
Right.
right. And also, he also met Ten Han and Chaozu and a whole lot more enemies, though. A whole lot of friends that Goku actually really met.
Goku befriends everyone.
Yeah.
Yes, he
And
befriends everyone.
and they become trash after. Okay.
Yeah, exactly right. Goku
Mhm.
wants to make friends with enemies, even though their enemies don't like really Goku at all.
So advice: don't become friends with Goku if you want to keep strong. Okay, continue.
What
Okay.
happened to launch?
To launch,
Um.
for basically launch is still on the anime series, but technically on Dragon Ball Z, um, he stopped actually showing her up
Appearing.
there on the
Nah,
episodes
that's
already.
fine.
So
I mean, Akira
yeah,
Toriyama said he did admit he forgot about launch altogether. Yeah, no,
yeah,
he did admit that at some
yeah,
point.
Yeah.
Mhm. I mean, he introduced with so many characters. Oh shit, we forgot one of the hottest girls here.
She
yeah,
got married. Oh, not got married. I'm not quite sure. She hooked up with Tenshin Han, right? I think.
yeah. But she's not actually married, to be honest,
Nah,
everyone.
Tenshin Han is a furry
What?
deep
Yeah,
down.
he's been
Anyway,
single
Anyways,
now.
Anyway.
anyway,
anyways,
Anyway.
it's
All right.
I've played this game. It's actually very well made. It's actually
Mm,
plays very good. I like how playing it on original hardware, not emulation.
Yeah.
mm.
The buttons are very responsive. I like the combinations you can do when you're fighting. It's a lot of
That-
fun, and I think this one, after Legacy of Goku and Blue 2, is definitely my favorite Dragon Ball game for the system. So yeah,
Mhm.
definitely a good choice.
Exactly. The first last part that I really want is the Kamehameha. If you fully blasted Goku right against to his enemies, even his stick.
Mm.
I'm not quite sure what I forgot actually the controls of that game. What I did as well is dash, jump, and use Kamehameha at the same time. That's what I also spam on this game. Yeah, that's what I actually learned about the Dragon Ball series. But for more likely, I really wanted to play this game all over again, even during my streams.
Mhm.
Mm.
Well, a lot of people have actually said that the storyline to the original Dragon Ball, not Z, not Super, anything,
Yeah,
is actually
yes,
a very good storyline. For
that
those of you who have not experienced the original Dragon Ball, I highly recommend that you give the original anime a shot. Miss Charlene is likely going to agree with me on that one. Oh, her signal
yes,
must have dropped.
right.
Okay.
Okay.
hmm
Oh,
All right. So that
oh, sorry
is
about that. Okay.
Miss Charlene's choice for her first game. Second game, Miss Charlene. Let's
Oh
have a
yeah,
go.
just
Up.
to be sure, and I
For
want
this,
just to make it clear, because maybe some fans will be confused with this, especially those who never even experienced to watch the first Dragon Ball.
Mhm.
We're talking about the Elder
mm,
Piccolo in this one, right?
Oh yeah.
yes, yeah.
Yeah. Because some fans who never get to watch the first Dragon Ball
Mm.
mistaken the Piccolo we know
Mhm.
with the with his father, which is the original Piccolo.
Yeah.
It was King Piccolo.
Mm.
It
King Piccolo. There
was
you go.
named King
Yeah.
Piccolo in the Dragon Ball series.
Excellent.
Ma
Excellent.
Junior.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right,
Ma
Miss Charlene.
Junior.
Let's hear your second choice
Okay.
for your favorite Game Boy Advance game.
Mm.
For the second one, that should be Sonic Advance. That Viraj
Mhm.
actually saw,
Oh
which is
There you
which is
go.
the thing that I
Um,
like.
uh, okay. Okay, it's good.
So basically, the storyline is different. There are three parts actually. One, two, and three. One of the hardest ones I've ever faced in my entire life. So you can actually translate it into English or Japanese.
Mm,
So the stage of this platform is really hard and complicated. Unlike on the first basis of the first Sonic the Hedgehog games, this platform is quite difficult to control, especially if you're using Sonic. Let's say you're going up and down, jump. Going up and dash. I prefer using Tails because he's one of the easiest characters that I ever use. Of course, Tails can fly. Um, let's see here. Yeah, Tails can fly. That's what his only power is. And the worst part that I don't like here is that the special stage of this game. If you guys are actually playing this Sonic Advance, if you could actually see the gameplay of this, the special stage. If you are getting all 7 Chaos Emeralds, the stage of this game is like a round circle, like a vortex,
Yeah,
like a hole. They're
yeah.
going on the hoverboard
hmm
that you need to collect all the rings. That's what I'm having a hard time actually
You just got
with
to
this.
practice harder. You got to practice a bit harder. I'd actually say that the Sonic 2 special stage is probably the hardest one. But
Oh
I'd say this
yes,
one
that's
this one I actually really enjoyed the special stage. I love the special effect that it has when you're going down that vortex and he's on his little snowboard. You got that music, and that music is wonderful, by the way, when you're going through the special stages. And yes, collecting
that's
all the
right.
emeralds is the challenge, and how you get the special emeralds is so how you get to the special stage is secret springs in each level. There's a spring in every level you have to explore and find that spring to get into that special stage. And yeah, and that's how you get all the Chaos Emeralds. And the benefit is, okay, you get to go Supersonic only at the end of the game, and you got that special stage, and that's really it. But
That's
it's got
right.
that's basically it. I'm very intimate with this game, but I love it. It's very
Yeah.
and you get to play with. And the great thing about this game is it's multifaceted. You can beat with Sonic, Tails. But if you want to play the easy mode, I call it playing with Knuckles because you can glide and it's a lot more versatile in terms of the characteristics. And if you want to play it on like an interesting mode, you've got Amy because she's got the little hammer that she can bash enemies with. So they all have their special features. All these characters. And I think that's what makes Sonic Advance a really great game. I think it did over 1 million copies. It was very popular when it came out in 2001, 2002.
That's
And
right.
that's why it spawned on so many sequels. But I think if you want traditional Sonic game, because if you're saying this is fast, Charlene, Sonic Advance 2 is faster. Okay, that's a much harder game. I'd say Sonic Advance 1 is probably the easiest out of the trilogy. But I think it's probably the most balanced out of the trilogy. So there's a lot more you can do with it. And I thoroughly enjoyed this game, to be honest, and I love it.
Yeah,
Now
same.
you have
Same.
blast processing in a Nintendo game.
Oh, yeah.
And I
Wow.
wow. And I got actually a comment from Dan Faulkner, and he said, "Don't forget to sing Sega Motive, Sega."
There you go. Of course, can't possibly get through a Sonic review. Very much for the copyright strike, Joe. Anyway.
It does. Well, it does actually say.
Whoever did that,
Say,
yes.
it does actually say Sega when you boot this game up, so it does have that. So it's cool.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
Exactly.
Excellent choices, Miss Charlene. Good choices for the Game Boy Advance. Now, since Miss Charlene just went ahead, let's go to Miss Charlene's partner in crime, Sir Pao. Sir Pao, I know that you haven't had the chance to play Game Boy Advance yet, but out of all of these games that you've seen so far, being showcased by Viraj, by everybody, and has been talked about in the chats, Darren Power first though says, "I'm here, excellent," and of course, he also says, "You gotta say it like Viraj, Sega." Okay, there you go. Sir Pao, is there any one or two games that have caught your fancy and that you're interested in playing?
Well, despite not owning a Game Boy Advance, I get to experience playing some games thanks to the invention of what we call game emulation nowadays.
Mm. I'm
Although
gonna have to look into that thing. Anyway.
Yeah.
although, although that's a no for some people out there, and sorry about that if
Nah,
you
nah, nah.
disagree
It's
with it.
convenient for me.
Well, there's legitimate emulation such as Switch Online, so it's not a no-no.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
That is true. That is very true. Continue, Sir Pao.
True. So even even though I was just a borrower of a Game Boy Advance back in the day, wherein I get to experience playing some games like NES and NES multi cards, a WWE the WWE game that I don't even want to recommend because you're gonna get your A kicked.
Uh,
The game that the game that I love the most and I would love to recommend are the entire Super Mario Advance games 1 to
Okay.
4,
Mhm,
especially the first Super Mario Advance.
mhm,
Hear me out on this because the other three, the three that followed the first one,
mhm.
only have minor changes from its original Super Nintendo port. Say, for example, the the Super Mario Advance 2 is just Super Mario World ported into a handheld, and the only difference is that you can alternate your game by switching between Mario and Luigi.
Mm.
Third one, which is the port of Yoshi's Island, only gives Yoshi a voice. So if you want to hear Yoshi doing a flutter jump like he's having a constipation, then you should play the handheld port.
Ring ha! Yeah.
The fourth the fourth
Yeah.
one the fourth one is Super Mario 3 remastered, and the only difference with there is that the line line up line up the object game is more of gift that give a gift that keeps on giving, because this time instead of just a symbol of spade, it changes to different symbols based from playing cards. after
Hmm.
you get the After you get a jackpot from the spade, it becomes hearts, it becomes club, then becomes diamond, with diamond being the most helpful of all, since the diamond is a sure win of 10 up, or extra 10 lives,
Oh.
forming the number 3 from top, middle, and bottom.
Hmm.
As for the first one, the first Super Mario Advance, if you hate how difficult Super Mario 2 is, then you should go for the Super Mario Advance, because this is the much easier version of Super Mario 2. It's like making Super Mario 2 being more of an adult's game than the Super Mario Advance from the Game Boy Advance,
An
because
adult game? Super Mario is an adult game? Anyway.
oh, should I say, oh, sorry. I mean,
Okay.
what I mean to say is, a game that an adult could finish better than a
Yes,
child.
understood. There you go.
Sorry about the term
Yeah.
confusion. Oh my gosh.
Adults,
Anyway,
and you still played with that anyway. Adults finishing. Anyway,
yeah,
continue. Okay.
and, and I completely forgot that this is a family show.
Yes, it's a family show, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry, children. Anyway, continue, Sir Pao.
As I was pointing out, Super Mario Advance is has become an easier port of Super Mario 2, since there are a lot of different things that have been changed from the original, like certain elements, larger enemies, easier way to replenish your hearts,
Mm.
and
And the fact that the original was actually called Doki Doki Panic for the Famicom Disk System, that was the biggest
yes,
thing, wasn't it?
and
It's not
Right.
even a Mario game, was it?
yeah,
Mm.
and as some game reviewers would say, the Super Mario Advance feels more like a Mario game than the original Super Mario 2, that was, as Viraj mentioned, was only copied from Doki Doki Panic
Yeah.
back in
Yes.
the 80s.
Yeah.
Hmm. All right.
So that's my recommendation, especially if you want to finally see,
Hmm.
or to finally somewhat finish a Super Mario 2, only
Hmm.
ported differently under the handheld compatibility of the Game Boy Advance.
All right. Okay.
Was
Uh,
Baby Mario still annoying back in?
was Baby Mario still annoying? Baby Mario is always annoying. I'm sorry to have to say that, but
Yeah.
it's
Yeah,
true.
that's true. Even
That's
even in SMA 3, or the Yoshi's Island port, Mario still cries very loud when he's away from Yoshi.
Oh,
It's
no.
kind of like they went
Aw.
out of their way to design him that way, but what can I say? All right, excellent choice, Sir Pao. Do you have a second one though, or should I go next?
Well, you could go next now, since the entire Super Mario Advance has 4 games, and that's
All right.
more than just what I recommended.
All right, so this is what we're gonna do. I'm going to give mine, and then I'm gonna pass it off to Joe to give his, and then close out the show. Okay. So, um, in my case, I'm gonna cheat a little bit because I'm gonna do what JDM did. I'm gonna show two and one bonus. So, in my
All
case,
right, this is the time when this is the portion where Joel will do the flexing.
no, 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 no. I'm not gonna do much flexing right now because of the fact that I've only got two Game Boys Game Boy Advances. I've got a modified Game Boy SP, modified Game Boy Advance SP, uh, because of the fact that I don't like changing out batteries. The original Game Boy Advance had double A batteries that you had to keep changing out, and I don't like stealing the batteries from the remote control. And I have the Game Boy Micro, which Joe was very generous enough to have sent
Amazing.
over all the way from the Philippines when he went there one time to go shopping at one of the RGCP events. So thank you very much, Mr. Jonas Soberon. This is my Game Boy Advance Micro. Hardware wise, the Game Boy Advance is so good that some modern handhelds are actually trying to emulate it. The RG300X from Anbernic right there. I is trying to emulate it. Compare the RG300X to the Game Boy Micro. They're highly similar to each other. Size wise, though, they're not the same. The RG300X is still larger and makes for a bigger screen. Good for on the go gaming. But in terms of games, I'll cheat a little bit. I'll use Fantasy Star Collection for Dan Faulkner's enjoyment. Fantasy Star Collection is a compilation of the first three Fantasy Stars. Fantasy Star
That's
1.
the second Fantasy Star collection of this show.
Yes, there you go. Exactly. Because it's
Oh
so
dear.
good. The Fantasy
It is
Star
good.
series
It
is
is good.
just so good. One Fantasy Star 1 first came out for the Sega Master System. Fantasy Star 2, which is the Empire Strikes Back of the series. Fantasy Stars
Mm,
3, the redheaded stepchild of the series,
mm.
but is still very important. And it's just lacking Fantasy Star 4. It's just lacking
Which is
Fantasy Star
bullshit.
4. I know I almost never chance upon any compilation where there is an actual Fantasy Star collection from 1 to 4, except in the Sonic Genesis collection for the PlayStation 3. Fantasy Star 1 is an unlockable, and it has Fantasy Star 2, 3, and 4 complete in it. Dan Faulkner is
Yeah.
saluting me, and I'm saluting you right
It's
back, Dan.
it's also on the Nintendo Switch Sega Mega Drive collection.
Oh, really?
Fantasy Star
Okay.
2, 3, and 4. They're there. I've got it. Yeah.
Oh, very cool. Very cool. I'll have to get that too. Um, I showed this a little bit earlier, and Aviraj has his copy as well. Pokemon Pinball. These are my top two recommendations. I'm a pinball guy myself because I'm old. I'm 50 years old. I started gaming both on
Oh.
1979 arcades called Seawolf and pinball machines. So my recommendation for everybody, I know not everybody's into pinball, but Pokemon Pinball Ruby and Sapphire is my recommendation for gaming on the go because you can collect your Pokemon while playing pinball at the same time. It has two tables that you try to collect all. How many Pokemon are there? I completely forgot. I just been collecting them. I don't even count how many Pokemon I collect. I just play through it. It has special mechanics like having the ball fall into different stages. Um, the pinball itself being turning into a Pokeball that captures the Pokemon that start wandering across your pinball table, and it's got good pinball physics too. It's not like one of those wonky pinball games where you flip the ball and it goes all the way into all the way into the other side of the galaxy. Pokemon Pinball Ruby and Sapphire is my one of my two favorite Game Boy Advance games. As a connoisseur of the obscure, another member of the connoisseur of the obscure is in the panel right now. There's Juan de Marcos as well. I love games that are absolutely unknown that people have never heard of. That people will just say, "Wait a minute, I know that one. I haven't played that in 3 decades, 30 years, or
Or
something."
does that game exist?
Or does that game has that game ever existed? One of my most favorite games of all time, back in the old DOS games, it's a game called
Good pinball game. There we
Sim
go.
Tower. I don't know if anybody remembers that game, but Sim Tower is my jam. It's a game where you build a building and put in all the different rooms there, like offices, condominiums, and like facilities like cleaning staff, security staff, and everything, and you build the rating of the game. I saw Miss Porter's face light up when I mentioned Sim Tower. She was very happy when I mentioned that game. That
I love
game
Sin Tower.
The Hello Sim Tower is absolutely amazing, and it's a little it simulates how people in a tower in a tall building live. So like offices, people living there, cleaning staff, security, events, and everything. And you raise the rating of your tower from 1 star to 5 stars. The ultimate goal is if you can raise your tower rating to 5, and it was running on DOS. Lo and behold, it came out on the Game Boy Advance called the Tower SP. This one is a sealed copy. I was able to luck out on the very last one on Amazon one time, and I got it. The Tower SP is a faithful port of Sim Tower on the Game Boy Advance. If you guys have ever hankered for playing Sim Tower, there you go. Joe is showing it on the screen right now for those of you who are on the audio podcast. You would do well to have a look at the YouTube video of Sim Tower or the Tower SP on the Game Boy Advance. You build the tower to spec and you try to raise your rating from 1 star to 4 stars in this case on the Game Boy Advance. And it has a little bit of guidance from an old man called Yamaguchi who serves as both your financier and the guy who gives you missions. So you see people leaving the offices, getting angry that the elevator is taking so long. You have to plan your elevators very, very well there, putting in stairs, putting in bathrooms, putting in restaurants and facilities and everything. A modern version of it is called uh, Project High Rise, if I remember correctly. I could be wrong on that one. I'm remembering it. It's on Nintendo Switch.
Yes.
Project High Rise. It's a modern version of it, but it's an inferior version, if you ask me. Sim Tower or the Tower SP is the way to go if you want to play it on the go. This is my absolute most favorite Game Boy Advance game ever. Wherever I go, I've got the loose copy here inside of my Game Boy, the one that I bring along whenever I go. But those are my two most favorite games. Oh, another thing, since I'm an accountant, you can it's very important that you handle your finances really, really well with this game with the Tower SP. It shows profit and loss statements. It'll bore the tears out of anybody else, but for accountants like me and who have aspirations of building towers and things like that. And Miss Porter is smiling right now because she understands my joy when it comes to Sim Tower. The Tower SP is my number two most favorite game on the Game Boy Advance. Pokemon Pinball number one, the Tower SP and number two, and those are my two favorite Game Boy Advance games. I'm passing it off to Joe now for his two most favorite Game Boy Advance games, and to wrap it all up, Joe.
All right. Um, on my side, oh, before we do that, so we still got a few people there at the chat. So Sir Dan is there. Thank you,
Mm.
Sir Dan. Sir Ray Q is there, among others. So we were able to ask a few people from PRG, asking them what would be their notable games for the Game Boy Advance, and we got a few coming from them.
Mm.
And says here, oh, let me just share that on the screen
Mm.
right there. So Rosalo
Oh.
says Risk Place,
Mm.
Final Fantasy Tactics, and Zone of Enders.
Mm.
Sir Jansen of Page Name Required, he says Knights of Lodis, Battlebots. Sir Romel of Core Gundam Plays, Yggdra Union, and the Minish Cap, Legend of Zelda. Sir Jello says Beyblade G Revolution. Ayan says the Castlevania Aria of Sorrow. That's what this is, Sorrow.
Yeah.
Sir JDM already mentioned the Mega Man Battle Network.
Not-
Tito Coman says Final Fantasy Tactics Advance. That's the second one. And the Aria of Sorrow, another one for Aria of Sorrow. And then Sir Paul already mentioned the Super Mario Advance games, and he did mention Street Fighter 3, which Sir Viraj has shown us.
Yeah, he showed
This
us
is
the
Alpha
demo
3,
there.
Alpha 3.
When I got
Alpha
disconnected.
3.
Alpha 3, not to be confused.
Yeah.
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 And Sir Aries mentioned Tony Hawk Pro Skater 4
Yeah,
and Gradius Galaxies. So out of
yeah.
all of those games mentioned, guys, do you have any any recollection of any of those any knowledge of those games?
Yes, I would say that,
Mm.
wouldn't I?
Oh,
Yeah.
yes, Raviraj.
All of them for
I,
Viraj.
I mean, Final Fantasy Tactics is a classic. I mentioned earlier, look, the download on my illegitimate site many years ago was high. That was probably the most downloaded game for the entire system back in 2003. That actually stole E3 2003. 2003 was the Game Boy Advance at its peak. I remember watching the E3 show and seeing all those amazing games being announced for that year and the year after, 2003, 2004. The games that came out there were just amazing. And they weren't just... what I loved about the Advance is Nintendo didn't have any competition. But I tell you what, typically I'm always an advocate of there being a competition there, element there, because it forces developers or Nintendo themselves to actually up their game. Nintendo still had quality content in 2003 and 2004, and I do respect them for actually coming out with some good stuff. Not just Nintendo, developers such as Square Enix, developers such as Konami, developers such as Capcom. There was some, and even Sega. Sega were a big for Nintendo on the Advance, because Sega, remember, they crashed out with Dreamcast, but they still developed some really good, solid hits for the Advance. So all of them did amazing work. So Final Fantasy Tactics, definitely that's one that's going to be up there. Aria of Sorrow got 2 mentions in that list. What did I say? And it's my favorite as well. It's up there. It's an amazing Castlevania game. If you want to play one Castlevania game for the system, Aria of Sorrow is the one. So yeah, definitely 2 standouts. Street Fighter Alpha 3, I like it. I prefer Turbo 2 Revival because the sprites are bigger and it just plays better in my opinion. But Street Fighter Alpha 3 is another good quality title, because the thing with portable gaming is it has to be suitable for that format. And even though I'm a hypocrite saying this, I have a lot of RPGs and they're actually really good for game on the go, but they do take a lot of time. But really, game on the go now, people use their mobile phones a lot. That's the biggest handheld thing. And people just want to play easy games. There are some more hardcore games that rival that in terms of the graphics of the PSP on the go. But there are a lot of games that really go really well. How does the Alpha Port 3 compare to home console versions? It is scaled down, but it does justice to the home console version. But let's be honest here. You only have 4 action buttons on the GBA. What do you think, Dan?
Right.
It's obviously a watered down port.
And 2 of them are shoulder
Obviously, it's a watered down port. And obviously, you haven't got like the RAM cart you would on a Sega Saturn, shall we say, which made the graphics look better. So obviously, it's scaled down, but it plays really well anyway. But Street Fighter Turbo 2 Revival is actually probably the best fighting game if we're looking about traditional versus fighter. And Sonic Battle's a really good new one that came out for the system that's specific for it that I recommend you play.
I believe the only difference of the Alpha 3 of GBA to others is that there's no announcer. But other than that, it's still somewhat faithful to the actual gameplay.
Does it matter? Does it really matter that there's no announcer? It's all about the gameplay. And that's what you want on the go. I mean, all these extra features, that. The thing is, like, I think, who was it that mentioned Van Helsing? It was you, Ensley, right?
Yes,
Miss
Porter.
It was Porter. You mentioned Van Helsing. Now, the PS2 version of that got critically panned. I remember putting it on my shelf in the game shop, and nobody bought it. It got 4 out of 10 reviews from IGN. I remember that game because I loved Van Helsing as a movie. I was disappointed.
Van Helsing was a great movie. Trust me on that one. I love Van Helsing the movie.
And Sierra Games made it.
Yeah, I do.
It's
a great tribute to the classic monsters.
I'm surprised you don't like it, Joe, because it's got Kate Beckinsale in it. I wonder if you liked it, at least for that.
Yeah.
It's got Kate Beckinsale.
It's
Someone
just
actually
Kate
bought
Beckinsale. Sure. That's Underworld.
Well, yeah.
Van Helsing.
Oh my
Van
God.
Helsing too.
She was
go.
the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, she's there, but come on, it's Hugh Jackman.
All right. Okay. Whatever. So Sierra Games made the Van Helsing, and you think Sierra Games make really good content? They've been making it for years, right? They made the first RPG for computers in the 80s. What did they do wrong with the PS2 port? But the Game Boy Advance game is actually a better game than the PS2 one. Yes, it's quite simple for what it is, but that's what you want on a handheld. You want gaming to go. You want it to be scaled down. You want it to be a snack, a bite of what a console version should be. The console version, and this is the problem with a lot of licensed games back then, and licensed games even now. A lot of them come out and they just don't have that quality because they expect it to sell on that license, on that IP. And I think that's where it struggles a bit. But if you're looking at Van Helsing on the Advance, okay, it's an okay game, but it's not as bad as the PS2 port, and that's what I'm trying to say. So there you go.
JDM has raising his hand.
Correction. People actually bought the PS2 game, but they
Mm.
made them as frisbees.
Oh. Well, there you go. I mean, I guess if you had money to burn, then that's what you did. There you go.
Right.
We didn't do this. We didn't do this because we were kind of pressed for time. But I'd like to relate a little bit of an anecdote regarding the Game Boy Advance Micro. We were not able to do personal anecdotes, but the Game Boy Advance Micro, when I got here in 2007 in the United States, one of the first places that I went to, I landed in New York City. That's where I lived. Was Times Square. And in Times Square in 2007, one of the biggest places to go to was Tower Records. So when you went into Tower Records, there were tons of great records, great merchandise, and lots of different things. Tower Records used to be in the Philippines as well, but it kind of left already. But Tower Records in 2007 in Times Square was the place to visit. And when I went in there, I saw shelves upon shelves of nothing but clearance Game Boy Advance micros. We're talking like originally they were selling for $100. They were selling for $50, and you could just take as many as you wanted.
Yeah.
Back in 2007, I had no money. I couldn't afford any. I wanted to buy about 3 or 4 of them, but I didn't have the money. I was only able to buy one, and that quickly became my favorite handheld on the go as I went. But to my eternal regret, because I didn't have any money back in 2007, I would have cleared out every single Game Boy Advance Micro in Tower Records if I had the money back then. And if I had a time machine, I'd have gone back to my 2007 self, whacked him on the back of the head, and said, borrow as much money as you can from whoever you can, buy all those Game Boy Advance micros, because it's one of the very best handhelds you will ever
That's
have.
absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And I remember E3 2005, Reggie Fils-Ames. He pulled it out. He was obviously showcasing the Nintendo DS and the Game Boy Advance SP, and he pulled this out. And he goes, look, we have a 2.5 to 1 advantage over the Sony PSP. That's what this is. He said it. And
It's
not in his words. He said that, and this is our market, and we're not going anywhere. And that's what this was about. It was a flop. Let's be honest. It was a flop. But it was there for the women. It was actually marketed at young children and women. It was $69.99 here in Europe when it came out. And again, it was clearance in my own shop. I wish I had bought it, but even then, I'm like you. I didn't have a lot of money. I was a poor student, but I worked in the shop. I got a discount. I managed to get one. This is the one, and I managed to collect the other ones afterwards when I was earning a bit more money. But the price of these things are ridiculous now. It's just how much money. But they're such a good quality handheld, battery life, and it's truly portable. Everyone goes on about the Switch being a great console. I can't put it in my pocket. I can put this in my pocket. There we go.
Now,
it's there in my pocket.
Try to put your Switch in your Try to put your Switch in your pocket. You'll just look like an idiot. Okay.
This is. I'm with. Listen, so Joel, I'm with you. This is actually probably the most versatile, best handheld. Handheld that's portable, that you can take with you with an amazing battery life of 8 hours plus.
And that's the reason why Anne Bernick is still following this form factor. All right. So bringing it back to Jaw. Take it away, Jaw. This is the tail end of the broadcast. We went over our 2-hour deadline, but yes, Jaw, please, bring us home.
Let's just do a bit of a flexing here, since they're already out. We got some loose cuts here. I got out of random. I don't know why I have these. And we got Mega Man Battle Network 4.
Nice.
Oh, nice.
Is it red? Is it Red Sun?
It's red. Yes.
It is red.
Because there are 2 versions.
And Breath of Fire 2.
Oh, yeah. Okay, Capcom port for the SNES, yeah.
And I got Final Fantasy 5.
Oh, 5 is good.
And Final Fantasy 4. I don't have 6.
Oh, yeah.
Just the best one, apparently. And
But
then, of course, back in the late 2000s, I loved Yu-Gi-Oh, of course. So after watching the first season, second season, Battle City, I could not get enough of Yu-Gi-Oh. So I played the Yu-Gi-Oh game. I learned playing Yu-Gi-Oh by watching the. Then when emulation from the Game Boy Advance became more available, I played the games. So we got right here the Eternal Duelist Soul.
Nice.
Ah,
We got Seven Trials to Glory, and then we got the Sacred Cards,
Hmm.
and then we also got World Championship 2004.
All right.
I activate my
Oh.
And
trap card. Dibs. A joke. Just kidding.
yeah, and the only Yu-Gi-Oh game that I got with complete in box, which is the Yu-Gi-Oh GX, the
Mm.
Ultimate Masters Edition
nice.
World
Wow.
Championship Tournament 2006, the PAL
And you
version
get
of
the
it,
seal.
Very
complete
nice.
in box.
Very nice.
Well, I have a
And
question, Sergio. Is it that
Mm.
like
yeah,
a limit? Isn't it like a limited edition for that, the Master Edition?
in terms of if there should be cards in this,
Yeah, I was gonna
which
say it should be cards.
Oh.
Yeah.
um, and I
Can you use
and
the
yes,
Konami code?
Can you use
Yeah,
the
use the
Konami
so
Konami
code?
yeah,
code for that.
and of course, uh, for the Game Boy Advance, of course, I played the best JRPG, the Game Boy Advance turn-based anyway, the best
Mm.
turn-based JRPG that the Game Boy Advance could offer. Your Golden Sun.
The Golden
Yeah.
Sun series.
Oh.
Yes. Viraj showed his copies.
Wow. Why is it your ones
Joe.
have shiny? You've got like glitter on your American versions. My ones don't have that
This is
shiny stuff.
this is the glittery
We don't have the
Yes.
glittery stuff in our
version.
PAL ones.
Golden
He's got
Sun.
the
Really?
he's
PAL.
got the
No, no, no,
foil.
this is the US versions.
Yeah, he's got the shiny
Oh, so
foil version, Viraj.
I don't have
the North,
that. No,
Eh,
I don't
possibly
have
you
that.
got the
Mine's
North America version.
I
mine's
have that because of my green screen have that.
Ah.
that's probably messing with your colors. Like, oh, okay,
Okay,
fair
there
enough.
you go.
Yeah.
And then of
Very good,
course,
very good.
Nice.
this is the third time this game will be featured on this episode because
Mm.
because I would like Sir Dan to be proud of me as well.
Yeah.
We got
Oh my
Fantasy
god.
Star
Yes,
Oh, you got the same one
Collection
as me. You got the same as me.
one, two,
Mm.
and three, the
Yeah.
PAL
Yeah,
edition as well. And I
that goes
got
for
this, yeah.
that goes for a
So I
lot of
got this
money.
on the Sydney retro video game market a while back.
Ah, you got a good deal. It's a good
Sir
deal.
Dan approved.
As
will
far as
approve.
the Game Boy Advance is concerned, I got a red one.
Mm.
Mm.
I got the modified version with the
IPS
backlit one,
LED. Yeah, IPS
Mm.
LED.
the
Yeah.
LED,
Nice.
and an SP, a box SP as well.
Very nice.
Nice. Very cool.
Oh, nice.
Very nice. Yeah.
Mm.
In regarding
What,
with my
one thing very quickly, I just want to touch it. It's something that just skipped my mind. Remember on the GameCube, there was a Game Boy Advance player. So that's
Oh,
another way you could
yes.
play Game Boy Advance games through a TV. So if you want the big screen experience, there was an add-on where you'd have like a disc in the box. You could install the player, you put the player underneath, and you can play Game Boy Advance games through your TV via GameCube.
I do
It's
have the
great.
player right there.
Heck,
Quick
there's
footnote.
there's
Oh,
even
okay.
some kind of DVD player with a Game Boy attachment to it. I completely forget what it's called, but it's a
Yeah,
DVD player with a screen on
with the
top, and you can
screen.
play
Yeah.
Game Boy
Yes,
Advance games on
I
it. I have
remember that.
no idea what it
Yeah,
is. If I had ever found out something about that when it was still available, I would have gotten it.
yeah.
But anyway, Joe, finish it up.
And thank you, Sir Dan, for the salute.
There you
You
go.
know I
That,
always look for your approval.
yes. All right, Joe.
For my two games, I've already spoke about the Yu-Gi-Oh games way back for the GBA. So I'm going to shed some light on the Japanese side of things.
Mm.
Mm.
So I haven't really spoke about this game in full detail. So the first one would be Angelic Layer for the Game Boy
Angelic Layer.
Advance, Japan.
Mm.
This is a Japanese release. So during the late 90s and the early 2000s, anime studios, no, not no, scratch that. Anime studios or manga conglomerates would greenlit anime or other multimedia assets. Video games are also included just to maximize on their earning potential in regarding with their IP. So with this, oh, sorry. So with this one, you got you got Misaki Suzuhara. So this is the game released by Clamp originally on the manga. Clamp, guys, to all of you manga readers, you know Clamp.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
they released the manga and the anime back in 2004, And this was the time when I was in college. I was really into anime back then. I watched the anime first actually, and I got so entranced with the show that when I found out that there was a game for Angelic Layer, I became interested in it. So I went ahead, and this was during the time of the emulation, right? Japanese only, unfortunately.
Mm.
But I was able to learn the game, um, you know, barely. So by watching the anime, at least I already know what's going to happen. I already know I know the basic premise of the story. So all I have to do now is to learn the gameplay. So
Mm.
the gameplay is you're controlling these living dolls. These are mobile dolls, like
Mm.
actual mobile dolls, like this big, right?
Mhm.
So, and then there's this stage called Angelic Layer. So the characters will throw these dolls inside the layer, and they will become alive as long as they remain inside the layer, right? So the gameplay will be it's a turn-based strategy ish kind of game rhythm. I- So how should I say this? How should I say this? So it's a strategy turn-based rhythm game. Rhythm
Mm.
because you have your move list there, if you can see, and then once you chose your moves, then you need to press a series of combinations of buttons just to pull it off. Think of it like Legend of Dragoon. Like if you miss one button, then the move doesn't pull off.
Mhm.
So a lot of times, if you're not, if oh, so the screen right there. So if you're not fast enough, if you're too late or if you're too early, then your character will do nothing. So it took a while of getting used to with the controls, but the game is not that difficult.
Hmm.
As long as you're winning your matches, you're winning your free battles, you eventually get not really maybe experience points or whatever currency that they have. You can go to the store and upgrade your equipment, whether to increase your attack or whether to increase your agility to dodge or to evade the opponent's moves against you, or to buy new moves. Um, of course, the better the moves that you got, the better chance of winning. So there are two ways to defeat your opponent here: knock them out completely,
Mm.
or toss them out of the layer, because
So it's a ring out. Mhm.
it's a ring out. Because as long as they're inside, they're still good to go.
Mhm.
And and so I was able to finish this game back into 2006, 2007, and just to
Mm.
prepare for this show. And I said, okay, maybe I'll just revisit the game, and I end up finishing the game yet again. Um, so one of those games that, one of my guilty pleasure games for the Game Boy Advance. Maybe because because I still love the anime. I can still vividly remember.
Mhm.
For all of you guys, I who will be who I cannot even give the game justice enough. I'm selling this game to you.
Mhm.
If not for the show, the anime or the manga, at least play the game. Sure,
Mhm.
it's in Japanese, but I would suggest watching the anime first.
Mhm.
There's the subs are there. The anime is been subbed. It's
Mhm.
available if you know how to find it. Wink, wink. And
Yes. Mhm.
everything will be not as tedious when you're going to play the game, because as long as you know the story,
Mhm.
you can play the. All you have to focus now is the game, the gameplay.
Mhm.
You don't have to worry about the story, and they don't really tackle everything. As far as the manga is concerned and the anime is concerned, they didn't really tackle most of the story, uh, porting everything in this game. In the game, they just took the basic plot. They didn't they didn't focus on the others, on the other characters. They didn't really focus on character building. It's just one opponent after another. If you can see the
Mm,
screen right there, that's the anime show that that I'm projecting right now in the screen.
mm,
So if whether it's the manga, the anime, or the game, give Angelic Layer a shot.
okay.
The other game that I'm going to focus now is something called Magical Vacation. So Magical Vacation is was released back in the late 2000s, mid 2000s. A studio called Brownie Brown. Basically, they are the guys who came up with the Legend of Mana games. So
Hmm.
they got out from SquareSoft, formed their own company, and created this one. So if you're going to play this game, it will remind you of the Legend of Mana games, especially during the Super Famicom days. Look at the aesthetic here. It kind of does remind you of a Super Famicom
Mm, it certainly does.
RPG,
Yeah.
right? So that's right there. So the story is, you are going to be presented with either a male protagonist or a female protagonist. A male protagonist will be means that your character will have more HP, health points.
Mm,
If you choose a female protagonist, then you'll have more magic points, MP.
hmm.
So depending, and I choose the girl, of course. I feel pretty. And so the basic premise is, so your character is being ostracized by everyone because you're the only one who can see spirits. So, and then one day, a principal of the magic school approaches you for you being such a unique person, enrolls you to his magical academy. So, and you're enrolled in this academy, you meet your classmates, and then it's these tropes are Joel. They go to a trip. You know how high
Oh
school
yeah.
animes or manga would go on a 3 day 2 nights trip
Yeah.
somewhere.
Hmm.
So this is basically it. So they are going to an educational trip, going to a beach somewhere, and what the
I'd never
faculty
allow
is
my
not yeah
daughter. I didn't. I never allow
the
my
fac-
daughter. Anyway.
and what the faculty is not telling you that there are certain anomalies going on in that beach, but you keep on going there anyway. So the
I'd never
unsuspecting
allow my
students
daughter.
go there. Yeah, so the unsuspecting students still go there for some reason,
Mhm.
and then shit just gets loose.
Okay.
Monsters start attacking all of your classmates, and then you're the only one who survives. No, I'm
Mhm.
sorry, you're the only one who's left. So
Okay.
you're being tasked right now to search your classmates one by one because the monsters took them somewhere,
Mhm.
abducted them somewhere. So that's the basic premise that I can tell you. The game is originally in Japanese, so what you're seeing right there is an English patch of the game. So it's available. Magical
Mm.
Vacation English
Oh.
patch.
Okay.
So what you're seeing right there, and unfortunately it didn't get a Western release. So
Oh,
turn
that's.
based. The
Mm.
maximum characters that you can control, six, and each character represents a different kind of element: earth, fire, wind, water, wood, sound, light,
Mhm.
darkness, plant, wood, something like that. Everything.
It's Captain
And you can
Planet.
only control six, right? So the as the as the as the story progresses, you'll meet your classmates one by one. So it's up to you now to choose the which best combination of characters that you want to control as you progress with the story. There are each one has pros and cons. Who's better on what magic? Who's better in attacking normally? Who's better on attacking on a group like a wide area of effect magic, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
who's the best healer, and what makes this game unique on its own, you get to collect spirits. So your character speaks to spirits, right? Different kind of elemental spirits, and the more spirits that you have, you can summon them.
Mm-hmm.
And and the damage is exponential. Let's, for example, if you have one water spirit, and you do a simple water ball spell, the
Mm-hmm.
damage is 2. So one spirit times 2 equals 2. If you
Mm-hmm.
got two spirits, then the damage is being squared. So the damage
Mm-hmm.
is 4. If
Four.
you have 3, multiply that again. 2 times
Mm-hmm.
2 times 2.
Mm-hmm.
If you got 4, 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, that's 4.
Oh wow.
So
Okay.
it's exponential. So the more same spirits that you get, the more you summon them, the greater the damage will be.
Mm-hmm.
The drawback, unfortunately, that means, and you cannot summon them. You can't summon them spontaneously. You need to summon them one by one.
Hmm.
So it takes a little bit of a strategy on, okay, who gets to summon them, because so one character will be summoning all of his spirits one by one while the others are attacking. Just so that you can character dish out the heaviest magic that you can provide. So you got your simple attack, your magic attack, your defend, your item, and then escape. So, um, so for all of you JRPG guys who are already finished with the Golden Sun series, Final Fantasy series, and you want something a little bit more, you want something turn based and reminds you of the SNES era, Super Famicom aesthetics, then you can go with Magical Vacation. You can download the English patch. It's available.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah, so
Very,
that's it
very
for me.
good, very good.
Mm-hmm.
Or,
All
or, you,
right.
or you could play, or you could just get Shining Soul and Shining Soul 2. That's another good game as well. But there's so many RPGs for this system; it's unbelievable. So many
Agree.
hidden gems. So
Yeah,
many.
the GBA is an RPG powerhouse, I have to
Mm.
admit. All right, excellent. Thank you very much, guys. That is basically our episode for Game Boy Advance. What can I say? We have
Oh, Sir
barely
Jarkus is
touched.
correct.
Mhm.
It's parabolic. 2 to the
Parabolic,
power of
yeah.
n. There you go.
There you go. And Toby Caperal says, "What game is that? That's Magical Vacation for the Game Boy
Magical
Advance."
vacation.
Mhm. All right. Thank you very much to everybody who is here. Thank you very much, especially to the people in the chats. That is our show for today. The Game Boy Advance. We have barely scratched the surface of the Game Boy games, because if we actually started delving into it, it would be a multiple hour, multiple episode show with so many different games that we can talk about, and there's something for everybody. So the Game Boy Advance, again, one of my personal most favorite mobile gaming devices. It is the handheld that I bring with me when I run out the door, to bring along with me to one of the missus's shopping expeditions, where I have to sit around and wait for hours while she
Mm.
chooses whatever she wants to buy. And yes, so many games available for it. It's so well known and yet so underrated, and so many
Yeah.
games on it just
Yeah.
flew under the radar. Highly recommended that people start checking it out. So I am going to end it here, and I am going to pass it off to Jaw to bring us home and to say thank you to everybody.
All right, we will do our shameless plugs. Let's start with Sir Pao. Where can they find you?
Where can they find me? Be- Besides here in my classroom,
Mhm.
it's me, Sir Pao, streaming on Facebook, on YouTube, and Twitch, and also on Kick. Streaming whenever I can, mostly at night. And right now, I got myself hooked back in playing Diablo 2. So I hope you could follow my playthrough, and I'll be going back to my certain backlogs thanks to this episode. that I have to continue the three Pokemon games that I left behind, and I'm gonna add one to the mix as well.
All right. Thank you for that, Sir Pao. How about Miss Enslin Porta?
Hi everybody, you can find me on twitch.tv/Ensign Porter. I've been quite inactive with streaming, unfortunately, but I hope to stream again sometime in the near future for my first year anniversary of being a Twitch affiliate. So for the meantime, check out all the other PRG streamers for gaming content.
All right. Thank you for that, Miss Enslin Porter. How about Sir JDM?
Yes, one Demarcus of 123 Go. You can catch me on Twitch 123 Go Retro. Recently, I haven't been playing streaming. I do sporadic streams, but I'll try my best to get back to the regular schedule. I usually stream Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays around the afternoon here, Philippine time. So I hope you could check me out, guys. And also my co-streamers here on Pinoy Retro Gaming. Rock on.
All
Yeah.
right. Rock on, Sir
Yeah,
JDM.
rock and roll.
Miss
Bye
Honoka.
bye.
So, hi guys, Honoko99 here. You can actually see me on Facebook, Twitch, and I'll be also trying to stream as one kick. And also, I do have also a YouTube channel, which also I am a rhythm gamer. If you wanted to actually watch me see my streams on YouTube, playing music games and Japanese music games, so do give us a follow. And I hope you guys everyone here join here the GPA podcast. I really do appreciate it. And also do follow our one of our co-streamers like Pinoy Retro Gaming. So thank you guys so much.
All right. Thank you for that, Miss Honoka. And of course, the man of the hour. Oh, I'm sorry. The man of 3 hours, Sir Viraj.
Oh God, here we go. Well, look,
Very specific.
I hope I'm glad. I hope you enjoyed watching the show as much as I enjoyed participating in it. Let's leave it at that. You can find me on the Sega Genesis group on Facebook. I usually, talk with Sedan, who's usually on this channel as well. All I will say, can't announce it yet, but I'm about to start a YouTube channel with Sedan. But that's as much as I'm willing to say. So we'll mention it next time I come on here. But you will find me on the Sega Genesis group on Facebook. I'm actually predominantly a Sega man, to be honest, as you can see here. But yeah, that's where you can find me. But once again, thanks again for tuning in.
All right, all right. Thank you for that, Sir Viraj. And of course, the one who led the show for this evening, Sir Joe.
All right. Thank you very much, everybody. We very much hope that you enjoyed this little showcase of ours of Game Boy Advance, one of my most favorite handheld gaming systems of all time. Thank you very much to everybody in the chat. I will just say thank you to everybody in general. And thank you very much to our panelists. I am the Pinoy Gamer Abroad of the Banyaga Native Facebook gaming channel, not streaming on Facebook anymore. Hashtag FUFB. I am streaming on twitch.tv under Banyaga Native and on kick.com. So please check me out over there. Please check out the Pinoy Retro Gaming Facebook channel for excellent streamers, much better streamers than I am, and our Twitch channel and our archive in Timeless Gamer PRG. Take it away, John.
All right, thank you for that. And just a few announcements in regarding with Timeless Gamer. So, starting June, Timeless Gamer will be moving to a new time slot. It will be on Saturdays, starting 11 p.m. Manila time. This is just an experiment, just so that we can accommodate potential guest panels on our future episodes. And the second announcement will be Sir Viraj will be officially joining in the Timeless Gamer panel
Oh,
officially.
thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. I'm
Yes,
honored.
oh
Thank
my
you for
god.
More
thank you
show
for
and tell.
including me. Thank you.
Yes. More shows and tell.
But
Ah. Well,
he
look,
has proven more. He has proven more than enough.
Mhm.
That even me, Sir Ray, and Sir Joel combined cannot even compare to what he has
Yes.
you
in his
I raised my
gaming
hand.
collection.
no.
Yeah, I raised my hands to Barrage.
No, you put me on a pedestal. You all have listen. We all listen. listen, we all have our histories with how we game. Not one person is master of everything. That's the truth. I might have a lot of Game Boy Advance knowledge, but I tell you what, you guys probably have a lot more Sony PlayStation knowledge than me. That's the truth.
That is true.
There we go. So, listen,
All right.
True.
there we go. But thank you. That's very
And
kind of you.
thank
Very
you all
humbling.
and thank you again for everyone who stayed there in the chat. Sir Kurt, Sir Dan. We will be expecting Sir Dan soon. Baru Naroyka is there.
Yes, Marunoroy Kagami
And
Tagle. Thanks very much for hanging around.
Sir Toby and Sir Jarkus. Thank you. And our brothers and sisters on the Pinoy Retro Gaming who were here earlier. Sir Derek, Pinoy Retro Gaming Times for the Raid. Thank you all so much. And our games and bodies may grow out of date, but our gaming experiences will forever remain. Hey!
Timeless.
Timeless.
Alrighty.
Timeless.
All right. See you guys again
Let's
next
go.
time.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
everyone, for
Take
joining
care.
in.
Thank you.
Peace, peace.